Are we live? Oh, hi.
It's live.
We're live. Welcome, everybody. Happy day for us. We are celebrating the launch of our new book, Creations, Conscious Fertility and Conception, Pregnancy and Birth. And I'm super excited. I'm joined by several of my authors. I hope to at least get your faces with names for each and every one of you today. What a fun day for us. We are climbing in the on the Amazon charts, so we would love for even more contribution, people out there buying the book, spreading the book around. It's such a yummy, lovely book. I can't wait to get more copies of it in my hands. I haven't seen it for about a week, and we made some changes in the meantime, so I'm so excited to get my own copies and have them in my hands and to be able to give them to people and just flip the pages and just feel that yummy energy coming out of the book. But thank you guys so much for all taking time out of your schedule, be here today to help us launch the book, to talk about your chapters, to do whatever comes up for us on this launch. And Cassy, you were up first, so do you want to go ahead and, let's see. Hi, how are you? I didn't realize I could control that from here. So tell us about your chapter, and actually a little bit about, because yours was a little bit different actually, about being willing to speak about what was true for you in your pregnancy and actually be willing to receive the judgment of having a joyful pregnancy. So would you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, thank you. So I actually loved being pregnant, and weirdly I loved birthing, like both times. Like it was like, you know, almost those annoying moms are just like, oh, they're just like in love with their body and in love with the pregnancy and that. So, but I really was perceiving that judgment of, like somehow it made other people wrong, or somehow I was, they kind of like the sense of like where I wasn't really being true. Like you can't really be that joyful. It can't really be that easy. You must be nauseous. I'm not really nauseous. I love food. Like, and so I noticed, like the more I went along, I just was getting quiet about it. I got more quiet and more quiet. And then people would, you know, you start getting out almost into the community of pregnant women and everything. So you meet new people and you have your friends. Suddenly everyone's getting pregnant at the same time. Well, that's what happened for me anyways. And so they're expressing like all the things that were going wrong for them or that were difficult. And I just kept getting quieter, because I felt like it was wrong for me to be sharing the joy and to be sharing that when all these people were struggling. And so it was really cool because, you know, I had the 2 kids, and the youngest one is 2 now. He's almost 3. And when we went on this Google Hangout, which is kind of like where this, you know, book.
The conception of the book.
Conception of the book, really.
Yeah.
And I was allowed to speak about like how easy it was and how much fun it was for me. And I was like, wow, like I've been so silent. And what if actually speaking about the ease that I chose and created is actually valuable too, not just the pains and the struggle.
Absolutely.
The first part of my chapter is really talking about like I always noticed where and this isn't just with pregnancy, but where you show how strong you are, how potent you are by overcoming struggle. Mm-hmm. But there's no value in having ease.
Yeah.
And so that was for me, like as I'm writing my chapter and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, wow, like no one was like, wow, look at you creating ease with your pregnancy. It was like there was more value in the people that were like, you know, I made it through this awful 9 months and I did it, and I had this awful pregnancy, and people love to tell the stories of their awful pregnancy like it was like a badge of honor, you know, to get through it. Mm-hmm. And so that's part of the first part of my chapter, and then kind of went into kind of some of the things that I noticed later that created the ease. Because what if we do create it? Like, what if it doesn't happen to us? What if it's not happening to our body? Like, what if it is a creation, a co-creation, really? Because, like, you're co-creating with this little nugget that's growing inside you, and their energies and their desires, and it's just magic. So that's kind of where I go further into the chapter.
And I love what you just said too, because it was really what you hit on right there that was such a cool invitation about your chapter was that it's not just something that happens to you. You can actually choose to create a joyful pregnancy. Even like Kim, who's going to come on later, with twins, you know, and her legs were so swollen she could barely walk, and actually using some tools to create that being more ease for her, it's actually a possibility. And most people just go through, bouncing through, feeling like a ping pong ball or a you know, pinball in a pinball machine, just bouncing off your experiences with no ability to change it. And it was such an invitation. So just to give a little sneak peek, what did you actually change?
Oh, well, okay, so one thing was during the labor, I was experiencing back labor, so those of you that know, it's very, very intense, and this is what it feels like. It's like that there's your tailbone, and it feels like someone's doing this, like every contraction. And what often happens with back labor is that there's no break. So you'll have like a contraction that'll go, it'll rise, and it'll dip, and then you have a break. But with back labor, you don't have breaks, like often. So there was a chunk of time where it was, my husband had said it was an hour. That
like
I had
relentless.
An hour contraction, a very intense pushing on my spine. And I'm just like, I look up and I'm like, do something. I'm like, and then I got my midwives and my like support team, and they're like looking at me like deers in headlights, like, what are they supposed to do? And at the time, like, I realized, like, really, it was a demand for myself. It was a demand for the universe. It was a demand, like, this is changing because this does not match what I know is possible. I'm changing this. And it was like, boom. And there's just this huge energetic shift. And I can't say exactly what happened with my body, but something flipped, something twisted, and I went, and then I had ease again. And I was like, and then I just melted back into the birth. So that was something that changed.
I love it. I have goosebumps everywhere. So in just the last couple minutes, and you're welcome to obviously contribute to the conversation throughout the whole hangout today, but just for this feature on basically your chapter and bringing out the story, what would you like to tell the readers that you'd like to invite them to this book for? What is it that you bring to this book that you're asking to show up?
I love that question. Okay, well, I guess one is being willing to create with the baby, with the being coming in, and without, and it doesn't mean controlling it, like creating with it. And also, I think what created so much ease for me was this sense of like, not where you feel like your body's being taken over and there's weird things happening, and like it's just like swelling and nausea and all this stuff, but like, so what if you were also creating with your body? And I was just always so grateful for my body. Like oh my God, like I desired to be a mom so badly, and so when it showed up, and just in that communion, in that gratitude for even the weird things.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do.
Here.
Hi.
Sorry. Here. There we go.
So I guess that would be, I think, like.
Sorry.
And it's okay to have an easy pregnancy. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't, you know, it like if you create ease, it's actually like, what if that is like a pretty potent magical thing?
Yeah.
That was pretty wordy, but I guess.
Well, I loved it. So thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being willing to talk about the things that you felt like you had to be quiet about. Because what if that's actually the invitation to more people being willing to acknowledge that they would like a different reality and that they can choose it?
Yeah.
So awesome. Glenna is up next. Glenna came on board into the book after the book was basically done, and we were like, oh, is it a contribution? Glenna, what do you have to bring? And so Glenna showed up, and she gave a different dimension to the book that wasn't there before, and it's so much more expanded. I would dare say it's a little bit edgier. It maybe is going to be the catalyst for bringing up some judgments for people, and how does it get even better than that? What contribution can that be? So thank you, Glenna, for taking the time to write, for being willing to lower your barriers and just speak the truth of, you know, the story and offer it as a possibility for people, even if, no matter what they think of it. And what catalyst is that going to be? Yeah, so will you be willing to tell everybody a little bit more about your chapter?
Yeah, and thanks for getting me in the book at the last minute. It was quite an interesting little conversation we had in Costa Rica, like when the book was finished. I said, well, should we get a chapter in? Wow, I haven't even looked at what I wrote since I wrote it. So
I can help you with that. I've read it like
what was the controversial stuff?
You were willing to speak about how judged our choices around pregnancy are, and depending on what that choice may be. And
Right.
Yeah. So you open up the chapter talking about, you know, if you're trying to get pregnant and you can't, you're pitied. And if you get pregnant with total ease, it's like, oh, how lucky are you? And if you get pregnant by what some would be considering an accident, then you're judged as being irresponsible or stupid. And so all the judgment that comes around.
Right. And, you know, I'm a mother of 3. I have 3 kids. The oldest is 21 now, so my pregnancies were a while ago. The youngest is just turning 12. And you know what Cassy was just saying about having a wonderful pregnancy? I loved all my pregnancies too. And it was weird. And what a great story to have out there for everyone to hear. Because it's unusual to have ease with pregnancy. And my deliveries were easy too. Home births for most of them. So I had that, but I've also been pregnant unplanned. I've had an abortion. I've had a miscarriage. And it's, you know, all those things are part of what this pregnancy, fertility, childbirth is all about. And women that go through all of these and judge themselves horrendously all the time for these things as if they just happen to us. And I think a lot of my chapter was about what is so right about all of these we're not getting. And I talked about people that came to some of my parenting classes that have had, like a woman that had, I believe this is in there, that had a miscarriage.
Yeah.
And I think her children were in their 20s. So this isn't something that just happened to her, but she had made herself wrong and felt guilty about this miscarriage, that she had done something bad during the pregnancy for years. And I asked her a few questions, and she had an awareness that was so cool that her daughter that she had after the miscarriage was actually the same being, the energy of the same being. And then she laughed and said, oh yeah, my daughter changes clothes all the time. I can see why she'd choose a different body.
Oh, I love it.
And the ease that created in her life. So a lot of it's about your children choosing you, which is not something we talk about. Yeah. That our children choose us.
Can you talk more about that real quick before you move on? Because I just feel like that's a pivotal part of getting that there's something else going on for conception besides just what's going on with your body.
Right. And you know, I've had help women have babies and get pregnant by allowing them to talk to the beings that wanted to choose them and let the beings know there were parents there that wanted to have babies. And next time I would meet them, they would have a child. So, our children choose. I mean, it's funny because I ask in parenting classes, I'll ask the parents, do your children choose you? And everyone's like, maybe, maybe not. But the kids all go, oh, yeah, you guys don't know that? Any kid under the age of 10, yeah, we choose our parents. They're like so much ease for them. They're still so aware of that choice and that possibility. So if you can see that your children choose you, it creates a totally different place of being a victim of pregnancies or being making yourself wrong for not getting pregnant. You can start asking other questions and allow, it creates more ease. It gets rid of a lot of confusion for people when they see that. And it's just if it feels light for you. You know, did my children choose me? It's a yes or no, which feels lighter to you. And I can look at every one of my pregnancies, and I mean all 3 of my children, and absolutely see the ease of that for me when I saw, did they choose me? Absolutely, they chose me. I mean, my son managed to choose me and his father in the craziest way with protected, sex, and he got in, and he wanted his body, and he chose us absolutely, and all 3 of them did. And the pregnancies that I had that didn't end up having babies, that didn't become, there was a totally different energy about that creation from the minute I found out the test was positive about whether that was going to be a being that was going to be part of my family.
Yeah.
And having that awareness can change the guilt and the strangeness you have about all those things. I mean, there's so much misinformation we have about this, and I love that this book is creating more awareness, more clarity for so many people. I can't wait to read everyone's chapters.
No,
just
I know.
Hearing the bits and pieces.
I know. I actually said in the introduction to the book, this book may challenge the boundaries of your comfort zone. There may be some things that this book presents that may drive you to question. You may have doubts at first, but if you're willing to actually be with it, I wonder what it could shift for everything you've made wrong about the creation of having children in your life. And so will you also talk about the guy you wrote about who had the awareness that he actually put his parents together and how that actually shifted all that wrongness he had placed on himself his whole life?
Yeah, this was great. He was in a class not too long ago. Very handsome man. Older and handsome, and had been handsome his whole
Glenna's
life.
Blushing a little bit.
Yeah, and he had made, like, he had this story that his mother didn't want him, and that she had tried to end the pregnancy. And back when he was when she was pregnant with him, you couldn't end pregnancies legally in most of the world. So she, but that had been a story he had heard his whole life, and the way that had what that had created in his universe about not being wanted, not being loved, not being cared for, and all these stories that he lived with for years. Didn't really allow him to be who he actually was, and know the potency of the creations the creator he is and what he has created. So I just asked him a couple questions about it. Did you pick your parents? Yeah, why would I do that? They were mean, they weren't very nice. And I said, so you're kind of a good-looking man. And he laughed. And I said, so did you pick those parents to create the body you have right now? And he started to giggle and laugh, and his whole world opened up. And I said, pretty good job to create a body with parents that didn't even want you. You must be a pretty powerful creator to get in like that. Like, forcing mom's hand. Like, yeah, you don't want me, so what? I want this body, and I'm going to have it.
Yeah. It
changed. Just the light went and switched for him. It was pretty cool.
I love it. I have goosebumps everywhere just hearing that story. And how much does that actually peel off that layer of righteous judgment that we have toward the mistakes that our parents have made and put us in the driver's seat of what we have actually created?
Right. Like, what if our parents have never been wrong? What if it's always been a choice? That we're the creators of our life from the second we come in and before. And our children are the creators of our life. Just to have the potency of what that is for everyone available in a different way is totally exciting.
So with hearing these stories and imposing those things in the world, it may elicit a little bit of judgment, if hopefully more like curiosity from people. What are your sort of closing words or the little tidbits you'd like to toss out for the readers and as the invitation to a different possibility with regard to this book?
Yeah. Well, I'm totally willing to receive the judgments. I've been talking about this for quite a while.
Yes.
In many different places all over the world, so bring it. Wow. What would it take to have a totally different possibility with this? What if people could actually see that they're the creators of their life, that our children are the creators of their life, and empower mothers and fathers and children to know what they know, and give them opportunities or the possibility to know what they know in a totally different way. If it's light, it's right. If it feels true for you, it is going to create more.
Well, and for you especially, what your chapter brings that I really see is the potency that it drives through the book is just acknowledging the power and potency of our choice in what we've created. Mm-hmm. Whether it be from getting pregnant to choosing our parents, it's just that you create everything from start to finish,
How does it get better than that?
How does it get even better than that? Thank you so much, Glenna. I love it. Such a contribution. Yeah.
Thank you for putting this book together.
Yes, it has been maybe one of the most fun adventures I've ever been on, so thank you for playing. You're welcome to pop back on, too, as we throughout the Hangout. But Cass is up next.
Hello.
Hi. Hello, beautiful lady. Your long cascading hair.
It keeps getting in my mouth, yeah.
From beautiful BC.
Yes, Vancouver Island.
I love it. So, Cass, would you be willing to talk to us a little bit? Your chapter is different. It's not so much about the trudging through the difficulties of creating pregnancy different. Yours is a whole different take on pregnancy and actually what it has created for your life. So would you give people a little window into your chapter?
Yeah, I like Glenna, haven't read it since I submitted it to you, so I'm going.
Yeah, what did I say?
So what my chapter was about was in 1972, getting pregnant when women did not have babies if you were not married. And the usual thing was to be sent to an unwed mother's home, which was a choice that my mother had kind of wanted, but my father said no at the last minute. And just, it was really interesting writing this story, because one of the things that I let go was all the places that I'd felt disempowered through the process. And I started to see how I had subtly changed things. And I was thinking this morning, how many women had a completely different experience, young women like myself, going through being pregnant when they were young. How many nurses stepped forward with a little more compassion than they had before? How many people, because of the doctor who allowed me to, because my baby was put up for adoption. So I went full term, and then normally you would not see your child once the child was born. It would be sort of whisked off right from the delivery room. And I had this lovely old doctor who was not the one who was actually supposed to deliver the baby, who was so kind and so caring, and he made sure that the baby was brought to me, that I got to hold her. He said if I wanted to nurse her, I could, and that I had access to her while I was in the hospital. And that was something that just wasn't done. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder how many other women also were able to, that maybe a nurse would bring a child by or let them see them or something, how many things changed there from that. So, yeah.
Well, and will you tell us, too, a little bit about what you realized that created for the rest of your life, and how you were able to make choices you may not have been able to make, and things that it actually invited you to contribute to the world in ways that possibly wouldn't have been available if you had continued down the path of being mom?
Yeah. One of the things that I was really clear on was until I was 5 or 6 months pregnant, I lived at home. My parents didn't know. My boyfriend and I had talked about running away together and getting married and all kinds of insane points of view. And but one of the things that I realized was I really wanted to continue my education. I really wanted to, and I did not want to resent a child for stopping me from living my life. It was my brother's girlfriend that actually let my parents know that I was pregnant. And the gift in that was that stopped the whole idea of running away with my boyfriend. And it was initially my parents' choice that the baby would be adopted. But it was such a gift because I was able to continue. I continued my schooling. I went on after high school, after sort of playing with a few different things. I ended up being a preschool teacher for 20 years. I was able to have a whole, it might not have been something that I would have chosen if I had not had a child.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that it's such an acknowledgement of how many other small children were you able to contribute because of that choice to not choose that route. You know, it's like, what's right about this? And I love that you talk about what's right about this that a lot of people aren't getting in the end of, toward the end of your chapter. Will you talk a little bit about that, having found, the tools of access later on, finding out and realizing, looking back, tell us what that was like.
I really see all the gifts all the way through that I was never out of choice. And even throughout the whole pregnancy, I loved being pregnant. This whole sort of concept of having to hide it because I wasn't married was just so bizarre. And so it was finding the tools of access really brought all those things that I'd known innately all along, really brought it full circle. And writing this chapter has been a way of really claiming that even more. So thank you so much.
So grateful for your contribution, for even being willing to do it. You know, being willing to look at it and put it out there, because there is so much judgment around pregnancy when it's something that isn't chosen. And it's funny, yeah. I love that Glenna's chapter talks about that too. It's like, you know, like she introduces her chapter saying, you know, if you're struggling getting pregnant, you're pitied, everyone feels sorry for you, and they want you to get pregnant. And then if it happens by accident or, you know, unplanned, I guess we should say, rather than accident, but then you're judged and you've done something wrong. So there's all these interesting judgments that people have, and I'm so grateful for you being willing to tell the story and actually show the bright side of what it created, even if it wasn't, you know, something that you planned consciously. How much did it actually contribute to you, and how much is that story able to contribute to, you know, to other people? I mean, I know there are even a lot of the women in my family had babies in their teens and gave them up for adoption. Lots of women that I know. And so how much has it always been hush hush, kept secret, and what else is possible for actually taking off all the layers of judgment so that you can actually just, this is what a creation that showed up in my life. You know, here's what I chose basically as a result of it and what I created beyond it. And so it doesn't have to be kept secret and hidden behind closed doors. The way, talk about how your mom even said that you needed to like keep the curtains shut and
not go out, not go close to the windows. We lived in a nice area. She didn't want the neighbors to know.
Yeah, it's so interesting how judged and how hidden that had to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you don't really speak too much about this in the chapter, but would you just say a word or two about what it was like, what you put on yourself about taking the limelight from your sister?
Yes, that is my sister, who's 14 years older, had her first child in October that year, and that is one of the things that I realized later was when there was a lot of attention around my own pregnancy, which took away from my sister's, and that is something that actually, one of the things that I plan on. I've never spoken to my sister about it, and I think it's time.
Well, also, and what if you didn't? What if it's just an invitation to people to realize, like, just because that was such a judgeable offense at the time, your daughter that you gave up for adoption had a family. Yeah. She was in the world because of your choice to give life to her. So what if it's not a wrongness? What if you didn't have to have judgment? Anybody who's listening or anybody who's reading that chapter, what if that's the invitation to realize, like, what if there wasn't anything wrong about that? And it's all the points of view we have that keep it from being seen as a contribution. So I'm so grateful again. If you had anything to offer to the readers or to suggest, or little pearls of wisdom, what might they be?
You never know how just your presence, your being, can change something. So I'm thinking of the hospital and the nurses and so just, we can always be an invitation for a different possibility, especially if we change the way we look at things, our points of view. And I could look back and go into total trauma and drama. Oh my God, I had a baby at 16. My life was you know, and now I'm an adult and I've never raised my own children. And yet, oh, there's been so many gifts. I was able to make so many different choices. And there is a family out there who had a beautiful, beautiful little girl that they've gotten to have as part of their family. So what if we look for the gifts instead of the wrongness?
Awesome. Thank you, Cass. Thank you for your contribution. You're welcome again to pop on anytime if you have something to pipe up and say.
Okay.
All right. Thank you again. Julie is up next. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Oh, we have some reverb. Can everybody else mute? There we go. I think we're good. Hi, Julie. So I loved your contribution to your chapter 2, because it wasn't just about pregnancy itself or growing a baby. It was really about the points of view sometimes that we have in place that don't allow pregnancy to occur and conception to occur. And so can you tell us a little bit about what your chapter was about, the conscious coupling, and how that shows up, and then your conscious choice to then start a family after you had you kind of were pretty conscious the whole way, and so would you share with us some of those pros and cons?
It's so weird. Thank you for allowing me to be part of the book. I'm like, wow, really honored. All these other women here. It's funny when we start to look at our lives in this way. You know, with your invitation, I'm so sorry, I had no idea I was going to get so emotional, but it's like you have to start to acknowledge the difference that you have been ever since you got here, ever since you were a little seed in your parents' womb, and the choice that you made to be here and to create the differences. Wow, where is all this coming from? So, yeah, the points of view that people have when they're trying to have a baby, trying to conceive, and they just go to doctors and they believe what the doctors say, and they have all this stuff in their head rolling around, and it has nothing to do with their body. It has nothing to do with what's possible. They're just getting caught up in judgment and projection and expectation, and there's just so much more possible when you get in touch with your body, and when you start to ask questions and you start to clear out all those places where you have all those conclusions.
Well, and you kind of had a different, knowing even back then before you chose to have kids, in that communion with your body. So will you talk to people about, just that question you could be with your body, hey body, if we have sex now, will it create a pregnancy? And just what you were willing to know.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too, because I always did have a connection with my body that was just really different, and I didn't know that other people didn't have it. And I started having sex really young. I was just a very vibrant being. and I got pregnant before I was married, and I decided to end it. And I knew that time, that day, that it was not a good idea. And I did have protection, but I still knew. And another time I was married and got pregnant and had a miscarriage, and I knew that too. And it's like, if we tap into and acknowledge the awareness that our body gives us, we all know when it occurs, when it can occur, when it's not going to occur, what's right for us to choose, what's actually going to add to our life, and what's not. And we always know in retrospect, but we actually know in the moment too. So if we're willing to open up to that knowing and look at what that's going to create in the future, then it can change the way you navigate your life and have it be easier and create more of what you'd like, rather than be stumbling into disasters.
Will you give the listeners and the readers a little bit of a sneak peek into some of the things you talk about in your conscious coupling sessions when people are looking at potentially getting pregnant, haven't had success, and some of the questions you ask them about that help them realize what their points of view are creating, including the language and things like that?
Oh my goodness, I can't even remember what I wrote.
I'll give you a little bit. So I loved that you talked about a lot of women when they come to you. Sorry, I'm going to pull out my headphones. Is that less reverb now?
Oh yeah, that's good.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I guess. Can you hear me, Sam? So interestingly, one of the things that that you talked about was a lot of women say, I want to get pregnant, I want to get pregnant, and they're using that language, and then when pregnancy doesn't occur, they create judgment around that, and it creates this downward spiral down the rabbit hole of the wrongness of them. So we're willing to talk a little bit about what that language actually creates for us, especially for the people who are interested in reading this book that maybe are struggling with fertility and haven't been able to conceive. Be the what invitation is the examples that you give in your chapter to helping them shift just those little subtle things that may contribute a different energy opening up in their life.
Yeah, and what's really funny is that so many times I would hear my single girlfriends say, I don't want to get pregnant, I don't want to get pregnant, and they would. And all married ones who were wanting to get pregnant were saying, and it was like, wow, everybody's creating the opposite of what they think they would like, or what they're saying they would like. So just using that access tool of the word want, the energy of it actually means to lack. So anything you say you want, you create the lack of, not having. So just changing the phrase of what would it take to get pregnant, or turning into a question, or I don't want to get pregnant, would actually work better for all the people who are trying, rather than saying I want and then pushing it away from them. It's really interesting when you tap into the energy of what you're saying with so much, like, there's just such an intensity to people who think that they can't conceive, and they're like, I want this, and it's like, wow, you're pushing it out even further with that energy. So like, what would it take to have a softness and more of a receiving and more of a question of what would it take to create what I desire and what we desire as a couple, instead of turning it on your partner or yourself, and somebody's wrong and something's not working, or it's broken, or you're too old, or whatever. I was recently speaking with an old college friend who I saw maybe 14 years ago, and she reminded me how she came and visited, and we had dinner, and she was with her husband, and I had my kids, and she was like, I think I'm too old, and we can't get pregnant, we've been trying for so long. And I have no idea what I said. We just had dinner with them. But that weekend changed their lives. And she told me just a few months ago that her daughter, who was playing there at the playground with us, was the result. She got pregnant the next month. And it's just so cool to see that it can be that easy and that light, and just the shifting of your point of view can create more what you'd like.
Yeah. Awesome, Julie. I was going to ask you what you have to say, but it sounded like that was kind of it. The suggestions and the contribution, the invitation you have for the people.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you for putting this together.
Yeah, for being you and just showing up. I'm so grateful. All right, cool. So so we have a little bit of a break, but Lyndsey, if you're there, go ahead and hop back on your video. And one of the cool things that I noticed, hey, there you are.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, Viv.
You want to take a turn? Can we talk about your chapter?
Sure.
You obviously have your little bundle of joy there with you.
Yeah, my
Maybe one of the cutest babies I've ever seen.
She's so fun.
Yeah. So Lyndsey wrote a chapter in the book about creating this little lovey right here, and I feel so lucky to have gotten to meet her at the body class this summer. She was such a delightful little person and so aware. I remember in class, Gary Douglas, she was starting to get fussy, and Gary tapped into the baby's energy, and he was like, turn that baby around. She wants to see what's going on. She doesn't want to, be sheltered. She wants to have access to everything. And you did, and she was like bubbly and joyful and like smiling at everyone, and it was such a fun little way to see the consciousness of these little people showing up. But yeah, and I love your chapter. Would you be willing to talk to us a little bit about how your pregnancy started off, and how you what it was like to just buy into this reality's version of pregnancy, and then the shift that occurred once you started to really be aware of what that was creating?
Yeah, Vietz is my second baby. So my other baby is 8, and so I got to have her before access and tools that I gained. Am I chopping up to you guys, or is that just my screen?
You're just a little jumpy, but we have your voice.
Okay, good. Okay. I'm just going to see if I can get better internet in here.
Can you, whatever you're recording from, though, we're kind of looking at your ceiling, so can you keep that sort of stable? There we go. There we go. Hi, baby. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I have an iPad and she chases it, so. Okay. You're okay. So I'll just try to freeze this so you guys don't get sick. My internet's just kind of freezing. So, yeah, with the tools of access, I didn't have asking questions the first time. And I would say in birthing, the first time, I used hypnobirthing, and I tried to kind of check out birthing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think hypnobirthing is great. I'm not saying anything about that, but for me, I was trying to check out and not be present with giving birth to a child, which actually made my labor 3 days long, and I was just in total resistance to it.
And will you talk a little bit about some of the points of view you had around it too that may have created some of that?
Yeah, I thought birthing was going to be hard. I thought, I don't know. I mean, I thought contractions were going to be painful. I had to kind of resist everything I was hearing because I knew nothing was true what I was hearing, but I didn't know how to listen to myself yet or how to ask questions. So, sorry. So, I really wanted to open up to giving birth this time to listening to myself and being present with the joy of having children, and the awareness that I had with Vivian was that, well, what was funny was I was pregnant and had a lot of judgment on choosing to be pregnant and choosing to be a breeder and kind of change my life again and go back into parenting a little one, because my 8-year-old was so self-sufficient and awesome. I was like, why would I do this again? But with Vivian, I had the awareness that she was exactly what I was asking for, and I just didn't know what it looked like. And I still am in that question of, like, Vivian is exactly what I've been asking for to help facilitate my awareness, which is exactly what Camila was, because she helped me choose more consciousness too after she came into the world. So
I love that you talked about that, and I love that too you were able to actually, I would love for you to talk just a little bit more about how throughout your pregnancy you were able to really examine some of the points of view, the rigid points of view you were buying into, like, you know, that everything had to be organic and everything had to be like pure, and that you couldn't have, you know, all these interesting things. And then tell us about being in yoga and standing there and just having that awareness of what's true for your body.
Well, yeah, with my first pregnancy, everything was organic, And so I thought, oh, well, I know how to do this right. When I got pregnant the second time, I was like, I know how to have a totally organic pregnancy. And I was terribly sick, and I felt awful, and I stopped my yoga practice, which I practice yoga like 4 or 5 times a week. And so I was really struggling. I thought, I feel awful. I can't go to yoga anymore. And then I started asking questions, and I was like, okay, I need to start connecting to this pregnancy more. And so I thought, well, I'll take a childbirthing class. And so I asked my body what kind of class it wanted to take, and it chose Glenna's body class, which I thought had nothing to do with birthing, but I followed the energy, and I chose Glenna's body class, and it just helped me to be in the question with my body again. So I started going back to yoga, and that was during my second trimester, and it just gave me the chance to look into my own eyes and see the strength of my body and be present with the fact that I was me and not a vessel, you know, channeling this baby. And so I got to be practicing and looking at myself and realizing that I could just practice and be me and be present. And then, so I was in my yoga class until a hot yoga for an hour class 4 times a week until I was 35 weeks pregnant.
Yeah.
And it just gave me the strength and the confidence, because I every day would ask my body if it wanted to go, and it totally wanted to go. And my baby was super happy. Every time in yoga, she was just in there partying and having a great time. And everybody around me was so inspired. My yoga studio still talks about it, and since then 2 yoga teachers have gotten pregnant, and they're like, oh, I remember Lyndsey being in here at the end of her pregnancy practicing. And so they're, you know, we're listening more to their body. And I had a lot of women come up and talk to me like, oh, is it okay to practice while I'm pregnant? And, you know, instead of saying yes, of course, I would say, we'll check in with your body and how it feels. My body says it's okay to be here today. So, you know.
Well, yeah, and kind of your chapter is such a yummy invitation to just, you know, so Lyndsey's obviously have baby involved, so it's a little distracted, but I'll just give you a preview. She talks a lot in the beginning of her chapter about how, you know, she got pregnant, she's so excited, she downloaded all the apps and the pregnancy apps and the checking in with other moms and probably the baby center stuff and the weekly updates, and was so tuned in to the community of pregnant people that she started finding herself anticipating problems and buying into that whatever they were going through was what she was going to go through too, and just really had this shift where it was like, wow, tell us about what Matthew said that really shook you out of it.
Remind me, because I have mama brain.
Yeah, so she said, so Matthew says to her husband, he says, well, I thought you loved being pregnant. And she was like, whoa, I thought I did too.
Oh, yeah.
So...
Well,
yeah.
And, you know, another thing was someone else was talking about age and pregnancy. I mean, I thought I had to get pregnant right away because I was 35, and I thought, oh, I better hurry up if I'm going to have another baby. I better get on this. And that just kind of got me onto the train of everybody else's thinking, because I thought, well, getting pregnant is, sometimes I step out of my awareness when I think something is like so real. And that is my definition of like kind of buying into this reality where you have to be doing what everyone else is doing because it's real, you know. So, well,
because you feel it, it's obviously real because you feel it.
Yeah, but I would say real is more, you know, now when I examine that, it's more, well, it's what this reality defines as truth. And so it was like, okay, well, I'm 35, I better hurry up and get pregnant if I want to have this baby. And then I was, you know, labeled a geriatric mother. So then I had to be really careful. So, you know, that's kind of how it all started spinning. And I was following all of these worries because someone's advice to me was, you know, oh, it's so great to be pregnant to tap into, you know, the collective consciousness of motherhood, which I defined as, you know, actually relating to other people who are pregnant. And, you know, misery loves company, so that meant other mothers who are having a really, 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 really hard time.
Yeah.
Instead of our actual awareness, collective consciousness of creation and birthing. So.
And once you actually did tap into your own awareness of it, tell us how that shifted.
Well, then I could actually ask questions and get awareness of what was going on, and, you know, real for me, which was, I had exuberant energy and I was so joyful, and I got to have this little being in my body for, you know, 9 months, and she's just like pure joy. And so I actually got to experience that. And the funny thing was that was actually when I was probably healthier in my pregnancy, you know, just because my body was like, oh no, I want juice, and I want to go to yoga, and I want to walk, and I want, you know, all of these things. And so then I actually got in alignment with my body. And my baby.
Oh.
And my babes.
Well, we'll go ahead and let you get back to being mom. Thank you for taking the time to jump on.
Yeah.
Such a joy to have you both. All right. Thank you. So we have a little break here in our lineup from the authors, so if anybody wants to jump in, I would love to have you guys hop on and chat. And especially, like, Glenna, I know that you have had, if you're still there in the background, I know that a lot of these women you actually know, because you've actually had these women in your classes and facilitated these ladies. And so, yeah, there you are. So I would love to get your input, because, you know, and Symantha's going to come on in a little bit to talk about, you know, her story, and Lyndsey's here, and so if you want to go ahead and jump in, I would love to hear you tell us a little bit more about how you see these same stories and how they've shown up for you.
It's so cool to hear what Lyndsey said. I mean, I did not know how much a contribution the body class was to her pregnancy. I remember her coming in pregnant, and I've had her and her daughter in 2 classes since then. You know, the women that are on here that you know, I know almost all of you guys, and the willingness you guys have been to change the possibilities with parenting, and the questions you've been asking, and how that's changed my classes and what I talk about and what's possible has been a huge, huge contribution. I mean, the body classes and parenting classes, a lot of you guys have been in there, and the stories some of the stories happened in my classes. Some of them were revolved around things that I had talked about in class or brought up or you brought up, and it's amazing to see what, like, some of these were 5 or 6 years ago or a couple years ago, and to see what those questions and being willing to be a question and willing to look at something totally different and a different possibility has created as your future. And I just like, you know, what kind of a future are we actually creating here with a book like this, and with willing to be choosing conscious parenting, conscious birthing. I mean, what are we creating in the world that's totally different that no one has ever seen before? I mean, I'm all like goosebumped and shaky. It's so cool.
Well, yeah, and that's what we were talking about. For those of you guys who are watching, in preparation for launching this book, we would just get together as the authors and talk about, you know, what can we be in the world? How can we get this book out there? What can we contribute? And what we really tapped into the other night is just that the book really has the capacity to invite question, and to invite people to look at their points of view, and to actually offer some possibilities for creating a different reality for themselves. Not just in regards to getting pregnant, but experiencing your pregnancy different, experiencing your birth different, and all the different parts of that involved. You know, like Julie's chapter is all about looking at the language of what that is. And so it's not just around getting pregnant and having babies, it's looking about what energy are you being that's creating your world showing up as anything less than exactly what you would like to have. And the invitation to look at that. And like Glenna, I love it so much that so many people that are in this book actually have been facilitated by you and contributed to by you. We haven't really talked about what these tools are that we've referenced or where they come from. So will you just give us a little blurb on the background? Everybody who's in the book it at least speaks a little bit to the energy of the tools of access consciousness. So would you just kind of give people who are watching, they may be like, what are all these people talking about? So,
what is access consciousness?
Yeah.
It's it was created by Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, probably 25, maybe going on 30 years ago. I found this work 10 years ago, 11, and changed my life with parenting, changed all of our lives. I mean, they're pragmatic tools to start changing things that don't work for you, for starting to see what is possible in your life and how to choose that and how to get out of your own way, and to know what you know. I mean, it's like taking the blinders off all the things that we think are going on, so we have more clarity about how to choose. It's about choosing for you, choosing how you want your pregnancies to be, choosing how you would like to have raising your children, like having a parenting that's easy. We talked about easy birth. Like, that's not a possibility in this reality. It's really tools to start creating more ease. You know, the mantra is, all of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory. So having that, everything in your life, pregnancy, hard labor, C-sections, whatever it is, unplanned pregnancies coming to you with ease and with joy and with glory, which is like the exuberant abundance of life, and having more. It's having more. And you can find out more at accessconsciousness.com. Mm-hmm. And all over the internet. Just Google it. There's stuff everywhere. You can find out lots of stuff. And I've been teaching the parenting class for about 8 years in this, based on tools that I sat down with Gary Douglas, and he'd been teaching a conscious parenting, conscious kids class. And we sat down and went through a lot of different tools that you can start using. And we've been talking about them all day, all morning.
I love it. And Glenna, we also have an upcoming sequel called Possibilities in Parenting. Glenna also wrote a chapter in that book. Several of the authors that are in this book are contributing authors to the next book as well, and taking things to the next level. I see Petrina back there like, oh, I know, I'm getting so excited. I love it. And that's really what the intention for this book was. For those of you guys watching or interested in reading the book, the backstory was there was a group of us that are facilitators and or practitioners of the tools of access consciousness, and the tools, we keep touting these tools like they're this magic thing, partly because they've created so much for each one of us in our lives.
Because they are magic.
They are like magic, yeah. We're functioning from like, this is how it is, and life has to be tough, and whatever we've all bought into, what if all of that is not actually true? What if you just being the awesomeness that you are, whether or not you actually know how awesome you are, is the potency and the power to create anything showing up different for you. So it's like, for example, particular to this book, if you're having a hard time getting pregnant, or if your pregnancy is lumbering and difficult, or you're fearful about birth, whatever it may be, the tools for that all of us use in the book, the base of access is really like Glenna said, looking at creating more ease for yourself and creating possibilities where you didn't think you had them before. And so the conception of the book itself actually resulted from a Google Hangout just like this that a group of us did back in the spring sometime, and it was like we were talking about, it was just so juicy, and all this energy around what else is possible. I think the actual Hangout was called something around access tools for ease with pregnancy and birthing, or something along those lines. You can find it on YouTube if you look it up. Just look up access, pregnancy, and ease, and I think that you'll find it. But that was the whole idea, and then it was really like it matriculated into actually being something that could be in the form that someone could hold in their hands and to share, and not just to read for ourselves, but actually to be that catalyst to help people like acknowledge that there's other things going on here besides what we've decided to sow, and actually help you acknowledge where everything you're choosing is creating what's showing up. And so that's where all of this comes from, and that's what each one of the authors in this book show up and actually invite you to a different possibility, using their story as the catalyst for that, and what they've gone through and what they've experienced, and what showed up in their lives, how that got created, and then what they were actually able to change, looking at everything as the way it was. So
cool.
Yeah, jump in. Who wants to talk?
I wanted to say two things, because you were talking about the tools of access.
Yeah.
I was saying to my husband this morning,
sorry, Lyndsey, I'm trying to open your field here, but I can't get you to pop up. There we go.
I was saying this year when I decided to stay home with Vivian, and creating something new, I said there's two goals I have in life, and that I'm going to put out there now. And I said, in life, I'd like to write a book, and I'd like to get a PhD or work at the college level as a teacher, because I'm an elementary teacher. And not 30 days later did you ask me to contribute to this book. after I put that out there in the universe.
Yeah, you're not a potent creator at all.
You know, and then 30 days later, I was asked to work at the college level to teach art education classes. So I was like, wow, that was kind of easy, I guess.
Guess I got to set some bigger targets.
I know, and that was just from being in the question of, you know, what am I creating next, and what more can I contribute to my life, since I wasn't being a teacher. And then the other thing about asking questions is that was what was giving birth for me. Was all I said the whole time, in every minute, I asked, what would it take to be curious? And so for the intense 2 hours, which was super, super short compared to the 54 hours of giving birth to Camila, in the 2 hours of intense labor with Vivian, I just would ask, you know, Vivian, what would it take for this to be easy for you and for me? And what would it take to be curious about the pain? And the magnificent experience of giving birth to Vivian was, you know, it was sweaty, it was nauseous, it was literally orgasmic at times. It was everything I wanted it to be and more than I ever thought possible. Just from asking the question, you know, what would it take to be curious? And I mean, the ability that I had to control my thinking by asking questions and be an allowance of my body and get out of my own way by just asking what would it take to be curious, I am forever transformed by that, you know, giving birth.
Yeah.
By being in the question. So it's magnificent. Of course I would want to share those tools.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I love it.
you asked me about the tools, and a lot of what we've all been talking about is, you know, you are the creator of your reality, as our children are the creators of their reality, and our points of views create that reality. And if you can change your point of view, just changing your point of view about labor and delivery not being difficult into something that's different, and we can change those point of views by asking questions, which is what Lyndsey was just talking about. Because a question always opens a door for more possibilities. So changing your point of view about parenting, about childbirth, delivery, conception, and all these things can create a totally different reality for you. So that's where it's about empowering people to create their life and know what they know.
Well, I love it. So Heather's here. Heather just jumped in to join us. And
hi.
I'm so grateful for you, Heather, and your contribution to the book, because if everybody else is kind of looking at conception, pregnancy, fertility, all that stuff, Heather is sort of our token, totally different reality, you know, in the mix. And it's actually such a huge contribution to the book, because what you talk about, a lot of women don't even acknowledge is an available choice. So if we're, you know, we're going out there in the world, we're putting this back out there, and we're asking people to be in the question, what if your chapter is actually the catalyst for people to realize that there's even way bigger possibilities than anybody was really aware of. And so, Heather, would you talk a little bit about your book and your chapter, your chapter in the book? And
yeah, absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much. I was, you know, it's such an honor for you to invite me, just because of that reason, that, you know, the choice to not have children, which is what I wrote about, it's, you know, for me, that's the choice that I made. I literally made a conscious choice to not have kids in this life. And, you know, so many people, that's like such a wrong choice, or something that's not even a possibility or on the menu, or something they don't even consider. And I mean, my whole life, I had a different point of view. Like, for me, it really was something I knew I wanted to choose, and I've never had any regrets about it. And that was a really different way to function, and to be able to speak about that and be invited to speak about that was just really awesome. So thanks for asking.
Yeah, well, I feel like it was such a gift personally to me, because I never even knew that that was a possibility. I kind of was buying into this reality. It's like the blinders are down, just you get married, you get pregnant, that's just what you do. And so it's such an invitation, actually, not just to the people who already have kids, but also to anyone who maybe has been trying to get pregnant and hasn't had success yet. Yeah. Really looking at the energy of, is this something I truly desire for my life? And possibly could it be that that's not something you actually desire for your life, is your body just showing up giving you what you didn't know you were asking for. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so, well, there's a few different things I could say about that, but just, I guess the first one is if someone has been trying to get pregnant and just can't get pregnant, like what you just said, Sadie, like, is that actually your body's way of honoring what your point of view really is, that you've maybe been like keeping hidden or even keeping hidden from yourself? And I went through questions with that myself. It's like pretty much my whole life I thought I didn't want to have kids. I just had no desire for that. And I like kids. Like, I really enjoy interacting with kids and being around them. So it seemed kind of odd for a lot of people. And I questioned it myself, like, why do I not want to have kids? Or is that really what I want to choose? And the more I just kept being honest with myself, the more it was like, yeah, that's really, this is my life. This is really what I would like to choose. And so there's that piece of people who it's just really a choice, and exploring that and honoring what's really true for them. It's like, what would it be like to follow, what you would really like as your life, and not just go with what everyone else chooses just because they think it's right. Like, what's really right for you? Because having a kid, that's a lifelong choice.
It is.
That's not a small choice.
So would you be willing to give us like a little sneak peek into your chapter and actually talk about the tools that you use with people to actually find out what their awareness really is about that? Because most people probably think, well, of course I want to get pregnant, so how do they know?
Well, there's a few different ways. I mean, that piece of like truly being honest with yourself, like if you don't have to tell anyone else what your point of view really is or what you even really like to choose, like really take a moment with yourself and lower those barriers. And if it wasn't right and if it wasn't wrong, whatever it is that you'd like to choose, what is that choice? What's really, really true for you? If you never had to tell anyone, like, could you at least admit to yourself what your point of view really is? So that was a huge part of it. A second part of it is that question of, if I choose this, what will my life be like in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years? And notice the energy of it. Every time that I really started to think about, what if I had a kid and what would that be like and what would my life be like, I would just get heavier and heavier and heavier. It didn't light up my world, So playing with making that choice, if it makes you heavy, then there's something like that. If you choose that, your life is going to become heavier and more dense and intense. But if you so when I played with not having children, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to have kids. My whole world lit up. It's like I relaxed and I was like, oh God, the pressure's off. It was such a spaciousness and an ease for me when I looked at that choice, or I started to choose that. So I knew whichever direction I choose, if neither one is right or wrong, and it's just from the awareness of what's this choice going to create in my life, following the energy is such a powerful indicator of what that choice will create. So if you get really heavier and heavier and more stuck and frustrated and like, with a choice, if you choose that, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
But if it's the other way, if it lights up your world, if it relaxes you and excites you and expands you and you have a peace with it, if you choose that, you're going to get more of that in your life. So for me, that choice was to not have kids. That's what really gave me a sense of, okay.
Well, and it is such a contribution to invite that is one of the options.
Yeah.
I think as women, we often don't even realize that that's one of the options. That's one of the available infinite choices that we have.
Yeah. I was really blessed. I actually grew up around a number of people who also chose not to have children. My mom's best friend, her and her husband, again, made a conscious choice to not have kids. I also spent a lot of time with another woman who couldn't get pregnant. And so I was like the first kid that she kind of adopted, as her child. And she was such a joy to have in my life, and to contribute to her by being a child that was in her life. I was about like age 6, 7, 8, 9, around that age. I spent a lot of time with her. And so she got to be a mom by having me around. Mm-hmm. And I also got to be around somebody who I was the only kid because I have 2 younger brothers. so that was really fun. And, I could talk incessantly and things like that.
Yeah. Do you want to also just give a quick plug for your other book since you're here?
Yeah, sure. I was going to talk a little bit more about infertility if you wanted me to address that.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Too. I'll do that first and then talk about my book. So,
okay. Cool.
So the piece of infertility. So I've worked with a lot of women on that topic, and I've also just talked with a lot of women. By making the choice to not have kids, I've had all different kinds of people show up in my life who also don't for one reason or another. And, it's really interesting because across the board, everyone that I've spoken with who isn't able to get pregnant or has had a lot of difficulty with it and has gone through like jumping major hoops to try and get pregnant, one of the most intense things was the amount of judgment that they had of themselves for being wrong and their body being wrong that they couldn't create a baby, or carry it to term or whatever the situation is. And some of those women that I know eventually did get pregnant, and some didn't. But the ones who really were willing to start letting go of those judgments that they and their body are wrong really started to shift things, and eventually they would become pregnant. Just by, it's like that energy of judgment is so intense and literally is like a killing energy. So if you're always making yourself wrong for what you and your body aren't able to do right now, it doesn't help create a baby. So it's hard. I understand it's a very intense, difficult topic for most people. So
it is, and thank you so much for actually being willing to say that. And for those people who heard you and then also just went into, well, oh crap, how do I stop doing that? Will you at least give them a few little,
Totally. Yeah, I was just about to go there. So.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good.
We're reading each other's minds. So the piece of dropping the judgments, like what if really, truly, it's not a wrongness, and it's also not right, because the rightness is also judgment. If it's not right and it's not wrong, so just the choice to lower the barriers and just let them go, even if it's for 5 minutes. And that's what I talk about in my chapters. Like, what if even for 5 minutes you can stop making yourself wrong and just hang out in that? The other piece is to start increasing the pleasure and the joy. So many people, when they can't have kids and they're trying to, it starts to become a chore and work and a task and a schedule and all of these things that is nothing about the joy of copulating or creating a baby. So I've noticed with both men and women, when they start to include that other piece of bringing the joy of it back in, that really opens up and shifts things and actually allows for a lot of women to be able to conceive when they couldn't. When they start to have sex for the fun of it, when they start to have date nights, when they start to just play around and enjoy being alive, that really is a dynamic shift. And again, that's part of what I talk about in my chapter. So.
And I wonder, just hearing you say that actually makes me think about, unplanned pregnancies when it is at a time in our lives when maybe we didn't mean to. Perhaps those little beings are choosing that as the time to come because you are in that space of joy and excitement about it rather than obligation and just the lumbering of obligation sex. It's like if, how many people when they get pregnant as teens, it's like those little beings are so drawn to that fun, that vibrancy, that newness, and that really that exuberant sexualness that our bodies have when we're that young,
Yeah, absolutely. And at any age, whenever we're enjoying sex and copulation is like, ooh, that feels good. Why wouldn't a baby want to be there for that? So,
and it's
absolutely. It's
cool a invitation the way you put it, because it makes us realize, like, wow, what could change if we just brought back that joy?
Yeah. And why not have it be a joy? I mean, it's kind of weird to me, the idea of wanting to bring in a child to like total unhappiness and stress.
Yeah.
I mean, I stop and think about those kinds of things.
Right.
So, and it's, you know, that can be hard to remember sometimes. It's like we have such busy lives and so much going on, and the stress of if you are trying to have a kid and you can't for now or whatever's going on, you know, it can be hard to remember, like, oh yeah, enjoying my life. Oh yeah, enjoying my partner.
Well, and I've even heard Gary and Dane make the joke, you know, when we're talking specifically about money, and it's like, if you were a party, would money want to come to you, or are you constantly in judgment of money? And so it's similar energy where it's like, if you're trying to attract this joyful being to you and you're being, you know, negative Nancy about it, does that mean you want to come and play with you, or is it going to wait until you can actually bring some of the joy back? So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell us about the Pharaoh's Builders real quick.
Yes, so thank you so much. Yeah, I have a new novel. I wrote a novel. I'm so excited. It's called The Pharaoh's Builders, and you can also find it on Amazon. And oh my gosh, 412 pages of nonstop action and excitement and intrigue, and
Here,
Erica's holding it up. I don't
Yeah.
have mine handy. Yeah, thanks, Erica. And yeah, it's just an amazing story about communion and oneness, and it's set in ancient Egypt. So the magical capacities that we in our bodies have when we do function from communion and connection with the earth and everyone and everything.
I'm so excited. It's just a natural extension of this book, apparently.
It actually is. They're really beautifully matched and energetically contribute in interesting ways.
When you sent out the free copy of the first chapter, however long ago, I was like, that was so mean. Waiting to get the whole rest of the book. It's like I'm hanging. So I'm so excited. I ordered mine a while ago, so I'm like, okay, is it going to come today? Maybe.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for taking the time to hop on the launch call with us and celebrate the launch of this book too. I know it's not, you know, an entire endeavor, but I'm so grateful for your contribution and the possibilities that it's going to be the catalyst for out in the world. And
absolutely.
What else is possible for people?
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone who created this book. It's such a gem.
It's so yummy. Yeah. All right. Lisa, are you there? Hop back on with us, my sister love.
I am.
Here you are. Oh, I love that voice. I love that woman. I don't have your visual though, so click on your little camera. We want to see your gorgeous face. Not that the picture isn't gorgeous. It's a phenomenal picture, but.
How's that? Is that better?
No. Yeah. Oh, wait. You almost are back.
I see me.
You see you?
You don't see me yet?
I don't see you yet.
I'm hiding.
Oh, there you are. All right, now I have you. Maybe I was just delayed. Hello. Where are you coming to us from today?
Cedar Hills, Texas.
What? What are you doing in Texas?
I'm playing with the horses, and I'm creating some new space and some work and office and all this kind of stuff. So I'm having some fun.
Fun. You also do not have biological children of your own, and so tell everybody. It's so funny because I'm now that I'm listening to this whole Google Hangout, I'm thinking, people are going to be curious what this book could possibly be about, since we have all these people who have alternative perspectives on conscious fertility and conception, pregnancy, and birth. And would you tell us a little bit about your chapter and why did you choose this book? What was in there for you?
Well, basically,
besides just that I begged you.
Well, that was my first answer, but you already took that, so now I have to come up with something even more profound.
Yeah.
So no, I do not have biological children of my own. However, from the beginning, and that will tie into what brought me to this book, from the beginning of, basically since I've been an adult and working in the mental health field, you know, as with my psychology degree, with my licenses and everything like that, I've run residential treatment centers for children, both males and females, and to this day, 20 years later from those early days, I have those children that I was therapeutic coordinator for, of those treatment centers, finding me on Facebook and emailing me about an impact, and a great impact that I've had on their lives and how their lives have changed from my time with them, 2 years, 1 year, 3 years, 4 years. So I believe I have lots of children and thousands of children after 25 years in the field, and That's enough for me because I got the best of it. I get to see them, and then I get to say goodbye.
Well, it's kind of like Cass, who was like, she, you know, was a preschool teacher. It's like, how many people's lives were you able to impact because the choice for the kingdom of we, the greater whole, instead of needing that, you know, direct. And you do work a lot, you know, with, you tell us a little bit about the story in your chapter. It's so
with
awesome.
Creations, what I wanted to do and why I was attracted to this is that I work with a lot of women that have been mothers for the first time. And they go through intense amount of panic. A lot of women I've worked with have infertility issues and couldn't get pregnant. A lot of women that I've worked with had very high corporate paying jobs, very demanding schedule. Lots of actual harassment cases about what changed for them once they became a mother, and being this particular chapter included was about this particular one of these clients and her first time with her now son, who's about 3 years of age now, and what happened with her as they moved her out of that position because they quote unquote said she became too soft. She wasn't as hard as she used to be. And couldn't do the job of the corporate banking world that she was in. But that's a side note to the reason why I wanted to be in the book. I mean, the book's name, Creations, let's just say. I know there's a lot more to it. But Creations, that is everything that I embody in life and what I'm interested in being a part of is anything with creation. And I firmly believe, for my own seriously, as you know, and some of the authors may know on this, and some of the listeners, I came up from a very violent household with a lot of abuse. And I was 3 years of age. I remember looking at my parents doing their dance of whatever that was, and I was like, there has to be a different way. Something about that does not seem okay to me.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't really like that and that violent communication or the way the hands are on each other's bodies or in some cases around each other's necks and the things they're saying to each other. There's something about this that is not correct in this reality. What else is possible? And so all the people that have been attracted to me in my business and whatnot who are pregnant for the first time or wanting to get pregnant or wanting to rear their children differently than what they were reared, thank God. And that really was a creation point for the two of us. So when I started into energy healing, access consciousness, of course, theta healing before access consciousness, you know, I even did like many other things before theta healing or access consciousness energetically. It was like everything was different. And everything always went back to what I'd learned, what I'd seen for me and for my clients. And I was like, what if we could create a new reality with parenting? And everybody in the book and all the authors in the book, in this, you know, configuration, as well as for the last 25 years, people are just like, things have to be different. You know, no longer just putting your hands on children and like banging them into submission.
Right. And I love, you know, you talk about how the cage of abuse actually creates limitations that, of course, are invitations for us to outcreate. And what does that put in place in our worlds when it comes to creating the, you know, our lives, the choice to have a family, bringing a child into the world? And so that is actually why I asked you to come and write in the book, was because I don't know very many people that have escaped all forms of abuse. Some people, almost everybody I know has experienced at least some form of abuse, even if it wasn't debilitating or it has some fingerprint or mark on all of our lives. And so rather than actually seeing it as the limitation, what I love that you talk about in the book is how you show us what this client of yours went through as she actually looked at everything that has ever been that's created her life, all the abuses, the financial abuse, the, you know, in many ways the bullying that she experienced in her job, and how it was actually the catalyst for her choosing something greater rather than buying into it, and what she was able to actually, how she was able to actually know what she knew and choose what would be the greatest creation for her amidst all those other things and even in spite of those other things. So will you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. I mean, this particular woman, and we changed the name in the book, so I'm like saying her name in my head, you know, just to keep privacy, but I'm actually forgetting the name that I put in the book right now. So
Erica might know.
It's okay. It's okay, but so I just want to make sure I, you know, keep it confidential, but the whole story is in there, and essentially, you know, she was a single mom. But even before she became a single mom, obviously, she wanted to get pregnant. Her marriage fell apart. There was a lot of drinking and drugging and addictions going on in that marriage. The husband at the time did not want a child. So once they got divorced and she got free of that, and we worked to get her free of that, she's like, I'm getting pregnant. She felt the spirit of that baby with her. And like, she would sob in my office about it. Like, I know I have to bring this child into the world. You know, the doctors wouldn't give her stuff because of her age. In like the whole
Contribute to IVF or anything.
No. And so she went to a friend of hers, got pregnant pretty quickly, 9 months later, had a baby. He didn't want to be anywhere near or involved in it. The baby came 7 weeks early, and what embarked on once the baby was born and what we did prior to the baby, you know, coming from there to here through her body was all this energy work through theta healing, through access consciousness. We did some rebirthing with the child once it was born because the cord was wrapped around its neck, and it was the most remarkable experience about watching a mother caretake for this child who was just in the ethers before it even became embodied. And the choice that she made, that no matter what financially, no matter what as a minority woman, no matter what, she, without a dad, without a husband, she was going to bring this baby, this spirit into the world because she knew she had to. And she knew this was part of her destiny and part of his destiny. And watching the two of them together now is just like heaven. They're both so happy.
Because what I've been telling people about the book, and even on your show on Voice America when it came on, we talked about the creation in general. This book is quite obviously with the angle toward conception, pregnancy, birth, fertility, but it's also really about creating anything. It's about recognizing and stepping up to realize that you create your reality. So what potency do you have to create a greater reality? And the beauty of the story that you told, that this client, you know, what you facilitated her through and what she was able to choose it. She literally saw, this is what I'm currently being that's creating a reality, and what other choices do I have available that I could choose that would create the reality that I am moving into, that I would like to have for myself. And she was like, I'm having my own back no matter what. And it's such a potent story for, like, your choice creates, what do you want to create?
Right.
You know?
And we had to go through all those doubts and getting her body ready, and, you know, dealing financially and getting a nanny and finding all the ways to, you know, do something that she's never done before, all on her own. She didn't have any family support at the time or anything. And she developed this inner strength inside of her that she kind of took all her corporate management skills but brought it in very humanely and creatively with this child, that I was even surprised as I would watch her come in every day, because the first 7 weeks, 8 weeks, 3 months of his life when she was on maternity leave, they came into my office every day and were participating in classes. Okay. And we were doing baby classes, and we were doing access consciousness to bars sessions. I called it baby bars. And for me, I had one hand on the baby's head, because the baby at the time was being on mommy's, you know, chest, laying on the massage table, and one hand on mommy's head. And I would do the bars and just keep switching the points. And that child just utterly taught all of us, myself included, and his mom, how to receive. Because I could never get her on the table before that. I could do the theta healing, but I could never get on the table before that. And then once he came, she was just like open to receiving everything. And then her whole life changed because she brought in him and he changed her. And what was so exciting to me about creations is being like the midwife. Yeah. You know, being the midwife for this mother-son, mother-child relationship through the energetic healing techniques, through whatever facilitation that I had, that got her out of her own cage of it not being able to be done, so that she can live her radical orgasmic reality, and then the child could come in and do that as well with her. And to me, I usually ended, I don't do it so much anymore, but for like 10 years, I ended every class with this little prayer. May all beings in all the worlds, especially children, have hands to hold, food in their bellies, love in their hearts. It's going to bring my tears to my eyes. And peace in their minds. In this we pray, like, aho. And it brought me to the realization when I was working with them and writing in this chapter how much I do everything for the children on this planet, for the child that I was that never had it, to the child that is within all of us that maybe we never had it, and to the children that you are all, yourself included, and everybody else who has children,
Well,
are rearing.
I want to acknowledge about this too. What a lot of people aren't going to know is that our facilitator class in Costa Rica this year, you had a huge dynamic personal shift for yourself and realized that you could finally go beyond having all of these children in your awareness driving you forward. And so, you know, how much gratitude is every being in the world have for you fighting the greater fight for them. And so thank you for being willing to share the story and get it out there to the world and to contribute to the book and just to be everything that you've been being and are continuing to be in the world. We're so grateful.
Thank you, and thank you for remembering that, because I hadn't talked about that publicly, but yes, letting go of all those children's eyes. Maybe it's the book, maybe it's everything, you know.
And maybe it's just the expectations. The
world is changing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Thank you for taking time. I know you're crazy busy, so thank you for taking time to be here and celebrate our launch with us.
Oh, no problem. I'm totally excited for all of this. I love everybody in the book. I totally adore you, and thank you, and Erica, of course, and thank you for putting it all together and inviting me to join. How's it getting better than that?
Oh, does it? I love it. Thanks, Lisa.
Bye, honey.
Bye. Symantha.
Sadie, I have to break in.
Okay.
I have to.
Okay.
Symantha, you're coming up in just a sec. Hi, Symantha.
Yay. So excited.
So the book just got to number 5, everyone.
Yay.
So it was number 390 this morning when I woke up, and now it's
number 5.
Number 5, and so everyone, thank you so much for everyone's energy, and I just feel, I don't know, I'm just feeling this moment of just joyous magic, and Lisa's stories, and Heather's stories, and Cassy's stories, and the other Cass, and it feels to me so much like really a shift of consciousness on the planet. Like it really feels bigger than any one of us together. It feels like a tangible shift, and I'm just so grateful and joyous to be part of it. And Symantha, it was so fun to meet you today.
Yeah.
We keep hanging out, Petrina.
And on the way to number 1.
I had to interrupt. I had to be like, I interrupt this broadcast for a very special moment. All right, Sadie, back to you, baby.
Okay.
Yay.
Well, one other thing I will put out there real quick, and then I'll get to Symantha, because I'm going to probably chat your ear off with Symantha, because her story is such a huge piece of this book. It's so beautiful. But one of the awarenesses I had in creating this book this whole time was that the book is beyond the book synergy is beyond the compilation of the stories told. It has this driving energy that it desires to create in the world, the change that it wants to be the catalyst for, and so really. Going to bring up emotion for myself, but really for me, it was like I have felt so honored that this creation has that it was me. It chose to tap on the shoulder and say, "Hey, I'd like to get created. Will you help me?" You know, because it was like playing with this book the whole way. It really was such a consciousness that I was collaborating with. It wasn't like this is Sadie's creation and it's all about me. It was really like I was just sort of following what the book was showing me that it desired. And so thank you for that, Erica, and thank you to the book for being out in the world, and thank you, Symantha, for choosing to be in the book. Can I tell the background of how I found you and your story?
Yeah, go for it. Samantha, I just want to share I'm already crying, so it's all good.
Yeah, this is such a fun story. I can't wait. So last summer, when I went to Denver for the Symphony of Possibilities, Samantha's husband was one of the drivers that picked people up at the airport and brought them. And it was like, my wife is pregnant. He didn't tell us anything about it, but it was like, my wife is pregnant. And so I kind of had this background energy of Symantha in my world. And then this year, when I went for advanced body class, I actually got to meet Symantha. And please tell me it's Lily, your baby.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. She was sleeping in the back of the car, and I still didn't really know the whole story. I knew that things were tough getting her here. I didn't have any concept of what had occurred in the year since I had seen you last. And so one evening after the evening class, I came out of class and Symantha was there, and she was like, oh, she had needed to talk to me because I was arranging a ride. And then Gary came out and Megan came out, and Symantha jumps out of her chair and she starts crying. And she's like, I've been meaning to find you guys. I wanted to tell you the story, and I have my baby. And I was like, I was standing there like, I don't know what to do. Like, this was such an explosion of just this energy that was erupting out of Symantha, and I had no reference for any of it. And then Symantha goes on to tell the story about how Lily came to be and why she was so excited to see Gary and Megan. So I leave you with that, and I'd love for you to pick up there and kind of take off where I left. So.
Yes. Wow. There's so much that comes up. I was able. I'm sorry, Sadie. Okay, wait. Breathe.
You're
okay,
great, babe. I love it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, today is like a really big day. I didn't realize it till last night. But 3 years ago today, we had lost the sixth baby. We had 6 miscarriages, and that was kind of the driving force that got me to get help and to meet Megan. Was trying to overcome and get through all the emotions and everything that happened with that last baby.
And you lost him at 6 months in utero, correct?
24 weeks, yeah, 6 months old. And so it was a very, like, I didn't want to live anymore. I kind of gave up on, I always wanted to, going back, I always wanted to have a family, and a baby is what I thought. And meeting Glenna in her class, and kind of all twisted here, I'm sorry, Glenna helped me get really clear on that I was lying to myself, that I really didn't want a baby. And when we actually got that opened up, I went, oh my gosh, I do want a baby. I realized I was able to choose having a baby. And then from that moment, it all kind of started unraveling, and then we got
Dan, will you give people a little sneak peek into what the awareness was, so that people aren't confused about the fact that you really did want a baby, but you didn't want a baby? Like, will you just let people know what you became aware of, and where the lie was, and what the discrepancy was?
The lie was, I've never really liked babies or attracted to babies. Other people are like, oh, baby, I want to hold the baby. And I really wanted a little kid that can talk and walk and feed themselves. And I like interacting with them when they can talk. And I wanted one like a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. And so when I got really clear on that, it really just opened up receiving a baby and actually having Lily. And then, yeah.
So getting clear on that, how long after that? You'd been trying for years and years. You'd had 6 miscarriages. And then after you got clear on this part of it, how much longer was it after that you conceived Lily?
I just, 3 years, not very long, a year and a half maybe?
Yeah.
She's a year old now. I can't remember the math, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, and I just pointed out, because what I wanted to acknowledge was just that once you got clear on the energy of what your point of view was holding up and prohibiting from creating your life the way you thought you wanted it to be, when you got clear, those lines of energy got cleared out, you were able to actually create, be conscious in what you were creating, and then continue to choose to create it. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
It got really clear. I want to say May. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was May.
Well, she was born in September, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was like the following year. It was really fast.
Cool. Yeah. So then tell us what happened after she's born. You've had these miscarriages. You finally make it to term. You have this beautiful home birth with your baby. Then what happened?
I had the home birth of my dreams. It was, everything went totally as it was so easy. The contractions didn't seem that bad. It was like, really, that's it to have a baby? The labor was long. Yes, we had a 27-hour labor, but later realizing it was Lily choosing in and out. That took so long. But 9 days after she was born, we started having struggles with breastfeeding and feeding her. And we had a concern, and we took her to the hospital, and they immediately admitted us for her. And then we went into this whole big drama. We bought into all the stuff that the medical world was feeding us, like just that she might die. We don't know what's wrong with her. We had all this stuff. We followed. The first week we were in the hospital, we followed everything they had suggested we do. We did their tests. We did all of it. We needed them. It was like a collaboration of them helping us. And then we started using access tools. Megan came to the hospital, access facilitator. And when she came, it was like everything shifted.
Just want to say, just real quick, to acknowledge Megan. Megan Hill is the Access facilitator that Symantha was talking about, and you can find her on the Access website if you want to, if there's any follow-up that anyone wants to have. But I just want to throw that out there because she was such a contribution to you, and she was such a contribution to actually the origins of creating this book and all along the way. So just want to give that plug to Megan. So then, just to kind of help people understand, you were buying into the hospital thing, just kind of going through the motions, and just really dire, wasn't it, where it's like you describe how everything just felt like there was no possibilities, and it was all just straight answers that people were giving you that were all just very heavy. And then you invited Megan to come and hold your baby and to contribute to you, and then what happened after that?
What happened? They ended up diagnosing her with a massive brain clot in her brain, and gave us all these statistics and other things. But Megan came and she held her, and she reminded me, the biggest thing is she reminded me of my power by asking me questions, and asking me different questions. And then I stepped in. It was like Megan came. We got this massive diagnosis that was just she wouldn't walk or talk.
Or possibly live.
Possibly live. Just be grateful for every moment you have with her. And then they kind of just left it at that. There was, if we chose medication or didn't choose medication, there was all these things that all happened. And Megan came, and it was like, boom, everything cleared out. I had so much space in my world in the hospital from that moment on. It was a massive turning point for us, because I stepped into my knowingness. All of a sudden it was, okay, this is what the doctors and medical world is saying, and this is what I noticed to be true. And I stepped right into my power. I started using essential oils. We chose not to medicate. We asked for time in the hospital. We asked for things. We asked for the bombardment of all the nurses and doctors and everyone that were trying to help us to give us some space. They came in once every 3 hours. So all of them could come in this little half-hour time every 3 hours. So I can actually get rest. We can do oils. We can do what we knew, what we need to do. And we kept asking questions. How does it get any better than this? What else is possible? What haven't we considered? We asked hundreds of questions over and over and over, about her care, about everything. It was like all of a sudden it was like this whole question. We just kept questioning, and everything became lighter and easier. And it was other people started contributing. Like we knew, like the contributions just kept coming in. The more we asked questions, the more possibilities opened up, and the more space that was created. And then the whole, like, going through it all, in 5 days, we asked for 5 days, 21 doctors kept saying, you need to medicate, and we chose not to. It was amazing. It was amazing how
You chose not to because you asked questions.
We asked questions, and we kept going, what's best for Lily, and what's best for her, and then 5 days later, we did an MRI, and when we told them we'd be open to the possibility of medication if it was worse, but when we did the MRI, 90% of it was gone. The brain, the massive spinous bursts from her ear all the way back to the back of her head disappeared. They couldn't explain it. Nobody could explain it. And it was magical, and it was totally magical. And it was just amazing to go. We healed our daughter in 5 days by asking questions, using oils, and praying for her.
You guys were running access body processes on her as well, weren't you?
Got her bars run. The only one we really did was bars. I didn't know. I had all these tools in my basket, and I didn't use them at that moment. But we did use the bars on me and on Lily, and that's all we used in the hospital at that point.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of it was her choosing in and changing things, but massive change happened in a matter of 5 days, and then she's been blossoming ever since she's gotten home. It's just been amazing to watch, and they were like, she's going to be slow, and I'm like, she isn't. She's crawling at 6 months.
No, I can attest to that. She is amazing.
She's a handful. It's been amazing, and it's been just, the hospital was so night and day, and it was really opening up to what else is possible. And again, I'm grateful for the doctors, I'm grateful for the nurses, and everyone that contributed to her healing, because we needed the diagnosis, we needed them to help with hydrating her, and so there was a lot of stuff that kind of went involved, but everybody was a huge contribution to our daughter.
But also acknowledging you and the receiving you lowered your barriers and allowed yourself to have, because someone can only contribute to you if you're willing to receive that contribution. And so the capacity for you guys to receive the contribution of others, to receive the contribution of everybody who was sending, energy your way, love your way, thoughts your way, being willing to receive the possibilities of the questions you were asking so you could follow your knowing and choose what was going to create greater for you and for Lily and for the whole experience. And just to acknowledge, too, that part of what you didn't say was just that the hospital policies were actually changed because of you guys being willing to look at what is this creating and what else is possible. And really just a lot, you guys, they were, so you guys were watching or listening, they were the first family to ever request donor breast milk at a time when Lily wanted it, when they needed it. There were just so many things that you guys were willing to ask questions and to choose what was going to create greater, regardless of all the walls that everybody else put up telling you that this was how it was or there was a certain way. And then Symantha's chapter is called, the basic tools of access consciousness work, because that's really what you had. You had the very basics. You had what else is possible, and how does it get even better, and you really changed the trajectory of your entire lives using those tools and being willing to receive and to ask for possibilities and choose based on energy and to follow your knowing. And so it's such an acknowledgement to you guys. And I remember Symantha, when I met her, saying, well, I didn't know, I'm just me and I'm kind of messed up. And I'm like, oh, honey, you're so not messed up. Look what you created. Look what you were able to create. And so this is such a beautiful story, and you tell it so well. And Symantha's chapter is actually the final chapter in the book because it just gives this zinging energy of possibility that's so, so beautiful. I'm so grateful that you wrote the chapter and that you contributed, and for everything that you've been willing to be. It's such a huge offering to everybody. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Sadie, and thank you for all the women and all the facilities that helped me. So many facilitators helped me along our journey, and every part I was like, I wanted to put everybody in because everyone made such a big difference in my world, in our life, and yeah, I'm really grateful for Access and Gary and Dane and everyone. And this book, I'm so excited. It's going to help other people step into their power.
Yeah.
And step into their own knowingness and their own truth. And that's what I really needed, and that's what I got. And I'm hoping my chapter shares that or shows that.
Thank you for saying that. I was going to ask you what you would like to send out there, and I think that was pretty much just right. Symantha, thank you again. Stick around if you want to jump in a little bit later. Glenna, did you want to mention did you want to say anything?
Oh, just the miracle story of Lily's birth and from the conception on. And I think you actually got pregnant really quickly after that body class. If she's
I was going to say, I thought it was just a couple months.
I think it was a couple months afterwards. And I met Lily at the last body class I had in Denver, in the advanced class when you were talking about Sadie. And she is so advanced and amazing, this little girl. I did pediatric physical therapy for years, and I had a session with her, and there's nothing from the thing that was in her head, all of that, none of that is there. It's just absolutely incredible. It's something that is inconceivable in this reality, what you created.
Well, she's just this little being. What I noticed, I saw her in the lobby of the hotel the first time I actually got to meet her, because of the day in the cab, in Samantha's car, she was sleeping the whole time, and it's like she's this little teeny body. I think at the time she was only like 9 months old, and she had this ability to kind of lift up and like look at you, and it was like, it would literally be the feeling of someone threw a net over you and pulled you toward them. Like, she has this demand and this pull of energy, and she's so present. She just looks right at you. Like, I've never seen a child be that present before. It's just such a huge gift that she is. She's definitely a different kind of being, and we're so blessed that you were the vessel to have her here and bring her here. So
yeah,
such a fun story.
Yay, Samantha.
Get a picture, Samantha. Hold a picture up if you can, because we're just all dying now.
Yeah. All right. So, Petrina, are you ready to come on next? Can we chat? Yeah. Let me see. Unmute yourself if you're... There you go.
There I am.
There you are. So, Petrina, I freaking love your chapter. I bawled my eyes out when I first read it, when you first sent it to me. It's so potent, and it is just, for those of you guys who are watching or listening, and for those of you guys who contributed to the book, Petrina's chapter actually is the first chapter. She's the opening of the book, and you just do such a beautiful job of actually introducing the change that you went through on actually being willing to start functioning from question and using the tools of access, and what showed up in your life as that unfolded for you. So will you tell us a little bit about your chapter and what you wrote about?
Yeah, I would love to. So my chapter is about how I became pregnant for the third time and had a miscarriage conveniently around the same time I was starting to become really curious about energy work, and had taken a course, learned Reiki, and then was thinking about taking this class on manifesting. And in between that time, I was pregnant and lost the pregnancy at 9 weeks. And so I was in this place of like, wow, bodies are awesome, and like, look at the magic we be, and then really in this space of excitement and gratitude for my body. And I had 2 really great pregnancies. My pregnancies were easy. I didn't think pregnancy was hard. I loved being pregnant. I had no nausea. I was like, I loved being pregnant. And my pregnancies were easy. My deliveries were long, but they were easy, and my kids were healthy. And so I really didn't have this like contraction around pregnancy. And then I was told that I had an ultrasound, and I was told that the baby had no heartbeat, and I just felt like I was just like slammed against the wall. I was like, what? What the? And so I really like started to go into this tailspin of judgment about everything, about my body, about me, about everything I knew, everything I thought I knew.
And you thought you knew it because...
I thought I knew it because I had taken the Reiki course, and I had read The Secret, and like I thought I had it all down. I thought I had the tools, that I thought I could do it. I thought I could like do this manifesting stuff. So when this came up and it slammed me, and interestingly too, I think I know now that my concept of gratitude towards my body was interesting, because I was grateful for my body because it had given me these wonderful pregnancies and it had given me ease. And then when I had a miscarriage, all of a sudden I felt really betrayed by my body. So, really interesting awareness around that too. So I went into going to the hospital in a lot of denial, like, going through the miscarriage in a lot of denial, because I was sent home and I was told, like, you're just going to start bleeding in a couple of days and you'll just have a period and it'll be done. Like, you're only 9 weeks. It shouldn't be a big deal. It shouldn't be this big, like, production. And then it was, and I had a lot of bleeding, and I was in the hospital for like 2 days, and the whole time I was in this space of completely judging myself, completely judging my body, completely feeling really mad at the world and mad at my body and mad at the whole manifestation, the secret bullshit, because obviously the shit's not, so like I was just really in a twisted up, angry space. And at the same time trying to change it. So like, trying to think positive, so that the outcome would be what I wanted it to be, which was that this baby wouldn't go. That it was not true, that, and then when I realized I was losing this baby and I couldn't, it was really interesting, I was not passing the embryo. Like, every time they went to do an ultrasound, it was like, we don't know why, but you're bleeding so much, but there's still extra pieces of embryo, and your body's just not expelling it, right? Like, and I'm nodding about it now.
Go.
Right, exactly. I know that now, but I was in such a place of contraction around, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay, they're going to tell me it's fine, they're going to tell me it's fine, they're going to tell me it's fine. And I was in such a place of just visualize it, just hold the vision, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. And I mean, I can perceive it even now, like the contraction in my body was so intense, and the contraction in my being was so intense. There was no allowance, there was no gratitude, there was no space for anything except judgment. And I even remember, and I had a lot of guilt, because initially my husband didn't want to have a third child. I really did. And I felt like I convinced him, and I felt like I felt like maybe he thought I wasn't capable. And so I started to internalize that as well. And I think at one point, I said to him at one point in the hospital, I'm really sorry. Like, are you mad at me? Like, I really thought he was mad at me. And he was like, wow, why would you say that? But I thought that's how I felt. I was like, look at what I did. Like, look at what I created. He didn't want this, and I did, and I pushed for it, and now look. So, so all of that happened, and I went home after the miscarriage, and it was around the time that my brother moved to Korea and was introduced to Access there. And so he started to talk to me about Access once we were starting to look at conceiving again. And I remember really being like, I don't get it. Like, okay, here, I'll ask a question, but I can't hear. Like, I don't get it. And there was
I love in your chapter when you talk about asking the questions around wanting to get pregnant when it was time to start trying. And he would say, the point of a question isn't to get an answer, it's to be aware. And you were like, well, yeah, why else would I ask a question except to get an answer? And just the way you were so honest about how you showed that in the book was so, I laughed out loud at certain times.
Right.
Honestly.
Yeah, and I think because now I can see almost the absurdity of it in the way, but it was really real. And I'm a nurse, so I have a lot of training around facts and studies, and I can see now how much that, and evidence, and I can see how much of that was getting in the way. And of course you look for answers, right? That's what we do in the medical field, we look for answers. So and then I went on to talk about the really pivotal moment of when I and the reoccurring theme, and the thing I said most often was, I feel so betrayed by my body. And I really did. Like, it was almost, that was in my head almost every second of my day, was the sense of betrayal. It's like, wow, what the hell, body? Like, you just really betrayed me. And so I said it again, and he said to me, okay, Petrina, like, really, can you be in the space of creating a life if you feel betrayed by your body? And it was like this slap. It was like, wake up! That's enough! And I just went, oh my God, like, of course not. And it was a turning point. It was just one of those, like, shit. And I went, okay, like, keep going, tell me more about this stuff. I wanna know more. And then when I started to really be really vulnerable, like really lower my barriers, and look at things like the willingness to have that thing that you're resisting, which was another tool that was really key for me. The willingness to have another miscarriage, the willingness to not have another child, because I was so dead set on having a third child. I was like, I want to manifest this. This is what I learned.
Will you tell the listeners and potential future readers a little bit about what that willingness creates in your life when you're willing to have what you think that you don't want?
Well, I mean, I think what it does is it takes away all of the resistance to that thing that you so much don't want, because if what you resist persists, and if your point of view creates your reality, and your reality is I don't want this, which is, we were talking about, who was it that was talking earlier about the word want, and I don't lack this, it just kept, this just what kept showing up and showing up and showing up. And so when you don't resist something, and when you can be in total allowance of anything, then all of a sudden all the possibilities can show up in all the ways that could be possible that your mind can't conceive. So when I started to go there, and it was really uncomfortable, like really uncomfortable, when I started to go, then I used that tool throughout my pregnancy, because then I became pregnant, and then I was like, oh shit, what if I have another miscarriage? So I had to really drop my barriers and really be in a place where I was willing to have whatever show up. And then, I went on to talk about the tools during the birth, and how the birth of my son wasn't really different in a lot of it was long, and I had an epidural, and but it was different because I was different, and it was different because I was in a really different space with everything. So, when my daughters were born, I really resisted having an epidural because I was really scared of having somebody put a needle in my back. And, I resisted force. I was like, oh my God, I hope they don't use forceps. And a lot of this is like my nurse brain, I know the studies, I know the statistics, I don't want, vacuum suction because I know this. And so again, I had to be willing, and I use that tool a lot. Would I be willing to have forceps? Would I be willing to have a Pitocin drip? So, all these things came up. My contractions slowed down with the epidural, and I didn't, I was just okay. All of life comes to ease and joy and glory, and it was almost the only thing I can remember through my whole pregnancy, my whole birth. And then, my son was born, and it was easy. And I don't know, I think writing this book this chapter was so cathartic for me, because I was talking about earlier this morning, just writing it, I was having awareness after awareness after awareness, even writing it 5 years after the fact. So it's been such an amazing
yeah, and it's
gift.
It's such a beautiful chapter, and it's such a beautiful acknowledgement of how easy the tools of access can be to changing anything that you think is impossible if you're willing to let those things change. If you're willing to let something different show up.
Yes, and if you're willing to not be in such a space of conclusion about what the right outcome should be, because I think that's what was huge for me, is that I had an enormous conclusion in place about what I wanted to show up. And I was not being in the space of what else is possible at all. And I really wonder what could have been different if I had been in a different place. And not that I wish any of it to be different, because it has totally been a complete gift. And I mean, I look at my son now, and I'm like, wow, I knew, and again, I talked about it this morning, but I really could perceive the energy of him. And I think that's what I was really identifying as wanting so badly for him to be here, is that I really was so aware of him, and I know that now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that, because it actually kind of elaborates a little bit more on what Lisa said too, about how this client of hers was just aware of this being and knew that's what she was choosing, and it was like, what's it going to take to create this? And so it's also an invitation for people who are reading to acknowledge what they know, and then let all their points of view get out of the way so that they can create. That's the title, Creations. I love it. So I'm going to put my picture up here real quick, because this is the bit.ly link if you would like to go purchase the book. I keep forgetting to actually say, go buy the book if you haven't already. If you don't have this book and it's not already on the way, you can do that now. It's on Amazon. It's called Creations, Conscious Fertility and Conception, Pregnancy and Birth. It's, as if you couldn't probably pick it up already, it's such a beautiful book with so many really, really beautiful stories that are such an invitation to a whole different possibility. Erica, your energy is like tapping on me. What's going on in your world?
It is?
Yeah.
I just the second was thinking I wanted to interview you.
Oh, yeah? Oh. I can feel you over here going...
But it just showed up. I was like, wouldn't it be fun to interview Sadie? But I don't have your schedule in my head. So what?
Oh, it's okay. I think I'm going to go ahead and fit Kim in here just so I don't waste her time because she was up at noon, and then maybe we can play a little bit after that.
Sounds perfect.
All right. Kim, are you there? Hi.
I am. Hi. And I'm sorry, I've got kind of a time cruncher. I'd be more than happy to stay on because I am loving hearing everybody. And I jumped on a little bit early, and I saw Symantha was about to talk, and she and I were on Petrina's show this morning, so I ran and grabbed some tissues before I got on.
I know. It's such a beautiful story. You also have a phenomenally potent and juicy and so yummy story. I love your chapter. I love how you can feel you not wanting to use the tools because you didn't want them to like be right. And then it was like, oh, begrudgingly you would use the tools, and then everything would change. And so, can you tell us a little bit about your experience and why you chose to row, and what that whole experience was like?
Yeah, so I wrote my chapter about finding out I was pregnant with twins at the age of 43, and my husband and I had just sold our house, and he quit his job, and we had planned to travel around the world with my 8-year-old son. And so I found out I was pregnant, and the first few months I was really in a space of not knowing how to deal with that. It's like, I have no home. We were trying to downsize. What the hell is going on here? And so it really took me a while to get back into the tools and to start asking questions. And, what's right about this I'm not getting? What else is possible here? And it's amazing. My son was 8 years old, and this pregnancy, even with twins, was so much easier than the previous pregnancy had been, because once I finally started functioning from the tools and asking questions, and even like during my admission into the hospital before they were born, I was able to really kind of connect with them. Like with my first pregnancy, I did everything the doctors told me. I didn't ask questions. I didn't talk to my body. I didn't talk to my babies. I read every book I could find. I judged the crap out of myself, And this time was just so much different because and a couple of the other women have touched on it, like I really was in tune with my bodies. The doctors would tell me something, and then I'd check in with my body and go, okay, does that make sense? Does that feel right? Instead of just taking what somebody else was telling me that might work for other people but might not work for me.
So Kim, will you just take 1 second to or however many seconds it takes you to tell people what is it you're looking for when you ask those questions of your body?
Yeah, so when you ask a question, you're not searching for an answer. And this was like a completely foreign concept to me because I spent most of my entire adult life as an airline pilot, and you're taught to be in control. You're taught to have the answers. You're taught to figure things out before they go wrong or before something can happen. So this whole kind of like Petrina was talking about, asking a question and then not actively searching for an answer or not already having the answer before you even ask the question was something that before I came to Access made no sense to me. And now I realize that asking a question and then not coming to a conclusion about how it has to show up allows you to stay open to any possibility. And so often the places that we lock ourselves up are where something happens that we weren't expecting, and then we go into conclusion about why this happened, or it must be wrong, or it must be bad, and we don't think to look at what else could be possible. And so asking the questions and not searching for the answer kind of allows everything that's on the periphery that you may not have even thought of to kind of start to show up.
Cool. So and then when you ask those questions, will you talk a little bit about light and heavy and how you had the awareness of what was and what wasn't true for you?
Yeah, sure. So when you ask a question, what light, if it feels light to you, it's kind of true for you, and if it feels heavy, it's not. Like a lot of times when we're trying to make a decision about something, we get this feeling like, oh, I really don't want to do that, but I feel like I should do that, and or I'm obligated to do that. So that would be like a heavy feeling, and that might be your clue that, hey, maybe that's not a choice I want to make. Whereas if you start trying to make a choice or ask a question and you get a really light feeling, and again, like, so often we're taught to think linearly, like A plus B has to equal C. So if we ask a question and we get a light feeling, but we can't figure out in our head how the dots connect, sometimes we hesitate to choose that. But what I've learned with the tools of access is, like, don't try and figure it out in my head. Ask the question. If it feels light, go and do that. And somehow everything will fall into place without me having to manually connect the dots or figure it out in my head.
Yes. And so you started, after you got out of your own way, started actually being present with your body, asking questions, and then where did that take you?
Yeah, well, like, one of the greatest gifts of it was both of my babies had ventricles in their brain that were measuring larger than normal. And I know with my past pregnancy, I would have totally freaked out about that. And so I just started asking questions like, are you okay? Do you require anything? What else is possible here? What can I contribute to you? What do you need? And I really got this sense of peace, kind of like a light feeling that they were okay, that we didn't need to do anything. There wasn't a whole lot they could do anyway other than testing, but it gave me like this peace of mind throughout my pregnancy that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And so I connected with them throughout the pregnancy. My delivery was really easy. Like, everybody had just assumed that I was going to go for a C-section because I was having twins and I was 43 and I was high risk and I had preeclampsia. And I would have been willing to do that, but my desire was to have them vaginally, and I did. But again, just staying in the question and being open to anything, not being resistant or not feeling like I had to be in control of the outcome was huge.
Yeah, and it's a huge nod to you and your ability to actually choose what's greater for you, because I know you've made it very clear, like, having been an airline pilot, you're trained to be in control, so you probably have that type A, very like, I know what to do, that kind of that training, that personality. So it's like such a nod to being willing to choose what's going to create greater, even when your brain can't compute it. It's just such a huge leap for a lot of people, but look what it created for you.
Yeah, it was amazing. And like another gift was, so when I was in the hospital, I had wanted to deliver with the midwives. The midwives would only do preeclamptic women or twins, not both together. So they bumped me up to the maternal fetal medicine doctors, who would come in every day and scare the crap out of me with, like, oh, well, this could happen to your baby, and if this does happen, then we have to do this. And I get that line of thinking, because they're trained to prepare for the worst case scenario, just as I was for an airline pilot. So I totally understand why they were doing it, but the tools really helped me not freak out about what they were saying could be a possibility. And again, just kind of check in with my body, check in with my babies, constantly asking what I needed, and just trusting what I knew, trusting the answers that came.
Yeah, well, and I'm so grateful, because I feel like that's one of the biggest catalysts that your chapter can be in this book, is you had all these things that one could easily conclude was going to be, quote, a problem, and you just were in question and were willing to actually know what you knew. Will you talk a little bit about getting wheeled down for your ultrasound of your legs, and then being that lady, and what that was like?
Yeah, so
and what awareness that gave you?
Yeah, well, there were two of us that were being wheeled down to have an ultrasound. I was having it on my legs because they were so swollen, and they wanted to make sure I didn't have any blood clots. And the other woman that was being wheeled down with me was just like complaining and moaning about being pregnant, and these women that say pregnancy is easy are a bunch of liars, and I can't wait to have this baby, and I'm having an elective C surgery just because that's the way I am. And she was just going like on and on and on, and I realized I was starting to feel like depressed and like agree with her, and yes, this sucks, and I can't believe this is happening, when the entire rest of the pregnancy up until that point, I had been fine. It had been really easy for me. And so I realized, like, so many of us are way more psychic than we ever are aware. We pick up on the thoughts and feelings and emotions of other people without even realizing we're doing it. It's kind of like when you walk into a room and people have been arguing and you can sense they've been arguing even if they're not talking anymore. So like I finally realized that I was picking up on all of her feelings, and it was putting me into the same space that she was in. So the tool I used in that case was return to sender with consciousness attached, and that just kind of allows you to see what's yours and what's somebody else's and what you don't need to hang on to anymore. And it created a lot more ease. And I realized how much I was picking up in the hospital when I was admitted of all the fear and anxiety and unknowing and just craziness of all the other women that were in there.
Well, and it's such a cool, just again, the invitation that your chapter is, because it helps people to realize who are reading this, like, I always feel that way when I go to the hospital, and what if that's not actually me? And for you guys listening or watching or reading in the future, like, this is such an interesting way to look at this. What if all that stuff isn't you that you've decided is you? And what if you can just let it go, return it to sender, and just be the space of you that doesn't have to buy into the trauma, drama, everything's going to be, you know, what are those shows, those baby shows where it's like every little thing is a trauma, and they're like, the announcer comes on and he's talking all dire because she's getting wheeled off somewhere because something bad's happening. You know, it's like we start to watch that with all of our excitement getting ready for our babies, and then that is like this heavy imprint over what we can be and what's possible, like Cassy was saying earlier, having a different possibility, being willing to acknowledge that something is ease. And so what else is possible using these tools that you use, because you absolutely outcreated all of that heaviness and all of that negativity by just being willing to be in the question and choose different. And you had all the odds stacked against you with twins and preeclampsia, and then it was like, yeah, baby. And then I won't tell you, I'll give you a little teaser. Kim's OB or whoever it was that delivered the babies had a funny little comment as she was getting ready to give birth, and it just is such a beautiful beautiful insight into the different possibility you are willing to be that is totally beyond what most people think is possible in this reality. And I'm so grateful that you shared it in the book and that you were willing to write about the birth and just lay it all out there and just allow your beautiful contribution to go out and to be the catalyst for others actually having the possibility.
And I'm grateful for you and that you encouraged me to put the whole story in. And the thing I want to say is, like, I'm not some superwoman. Like, this is available to anyone. And yes, I made choices and I wouldn't give up, but like, anyone can do this. These tools are available to anybody to use. And just because something doesn't turn out the way you had planned it, like, what if it's turning out even better? What's right about this you're not getting? What's, you know, is this the change you've been asking for showing up in a different way? Like, those are some of the things I asked myself when I felt like things were starting to spin out of control. And, you know, control is an illusion anyway. So, yeah.
Well, it's awesome. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
And I am too.
Yeah. And what Kim mentioned earlier, so this morning, Petrina, who was just on before, has a show on A2Zen.fm. It's called Messy Adventures in Living. Is that right, Petrina? Yeah. And it's her show this morning was also about the book. So if you liked hearing about the stories, Petrina actually reads from her chapter on there. Kim joined her on that, and I believe Symantha did too, and maybe even Erica. Was there anybody else that jumped on there with you guys?
I think Susan was there too.
Susan was there too. Fun. So it was a collaborative effort this morning too. So if you want to get a little bit more, you can find that in the archives. If you go to zen.fm and look at Messy Adventures in Living, you can get the replay of that as well if you want to kind of tap in and hear the story. But you could also just go to Amazon. The bit.ly link is right up here underneath my name, and you can buy the book. And thank goodness for Prime, you can have it in like 2 days. Like, you can have it by this weekend, and you can lay in bed and read it and do what I'll do, which is probably lay in front of the fireplace, like powering over, even though I've read it 1,000 times already. Again, so thank you, Kim. Have a great rest of your day.
So much, and what else is possible for babies, beings, bodies, moms, everybody now. Thank you. I'm so grateful to all of you for your vulnerability and your contribution.
Thanks, Kim. Bye. Susan, you have a crazy life happening right now. How many things do you have going on just today? You might have to unmute yourself.
How is that? Is that better?
That's better. Yes, we have you now. Yay!
So there's 5 things happening. 3 down, 2 to go.
Awesome. So you were on Petrina's show this morning. There's the start of the day.
Yes.
And then what's next?
And then I am here with you.
Uh-huh.
And then I will be with Bonnie Bruder. We're going to film the university expert on conscious birthing. Number 4 is going to be, I'll be on national TV today.
Yay! On Ask Bon Bon, correct?
Yes, on the Ask Bon Bon show on the Lifestyle channel at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then tonight we launch the Conscious Birthing and Beyond 5 telecall series. There's 5 calls. Tonight is the first one. And we have guest speakers, and we're giving away the entire summer season for free as a bonus when you jump on. And you are one of our guest speakers.
I am. Yes, I am. I'll be on, I think, November 23rd. So
yeah, you're on the 3rd or the 4th. You're the 4th. I think you're the 4th call.
Yeah.
Nice.
So tell us a little bit about your chapter. Why did you choose to write in this book, and what do you know? And give us a little window into what Susan's chapter is about.
Sure, and I love the way you smile when you say that, because you know all the back-end details.
I do. I know everybody. I know everybody's stuff, and it's so juicy. So I just am like, put it out there. Share it with the world.
Awesome. So I've been kind of sitting with this baby energy for about 5 years now. And you and I, we go way back together, looking at the different possibilities that could show up. And I was running a woman's body process. I'm an energetic coach and a conscious facilitator, and I call myself a consciousness revolutionary.
Yeah.
Because I am all about following the energy. And you know, basically what that means is it's asking a question. Because when you ask a question, and there she goes. So I'll just continue. So when you ask a question, you literally change your life. And I guess we're on autopilot. So how does it get better than this?
I'm still here, Susan. Don't worry.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm like, now there's a black screen.
No, you're all good. Just keep sharing with us more about your story. And Sadie's just having a little moment of biology.
Oh, yeah, gotcha. Yeah, so it was about 5 years ago, and I was working on a woman doing a body process, and when we were there together, I heard this voice kind of talking to me, and I looked all around because there was a bunch of other people running body processes at the same time, and I looked over my shoulder because I heard this voice, and it sounded as if there was someone right there next to me. And when I couldn't find anybody, I'm like, okay, it's got to be in my head. And I tried to disregard it. I tried to just judge it out of my life. And that actually didn't work. So as I focused around, like literally, it felt like time stopped. And in the process of that happening, this voice came again to me saying, hey, you've got the tools. There's a different possibility available now for us babies and for moms who are looking to give birth. And I was like, really? Like, who's saying that? Who's talking to me? Because I know it's not me. And I literally had a very adult conversation with this baby, and it was profound. It felt as though hours had gone by, and it was mere minutes. This infant that was in this mom in utero, you know, told me all about how not only she, but all babies had facilitated their parents getting together. So she had picked her mom and her dad, and she was definitely coming here through her mom's body, and she was creating the body that she was looking for in her mom. And she had asked me to sort of step out and kind of bring this to the awareness, you know, all around the world, because the way we've been, you know, taught, and how our moms, you know, delivered us, and how, you know, the grandmothers delivered us has changed radically. You know, you look at our technology, and we went from like a Model T car, and now we have a Tesla within 100 years. You know, and we went from a switchboard to an iPhone in 100 years. but we're still going to the hospital, we're still getting drugs, episiotomies are still taking place, and babies are still being clamped and sucked out, or cesarean sections. So, you know, what else is available to us? What if there's another different possibility? And the baby went on to say, yeah. So how much of your knowing and how much of the mom's bodies have we sort of disconnected from? And we've given it all to the doctors. It's like, okay, the doctor says this day, the doctor says this time, the doctor says, you know, wait till your water breaks, you know, wait till you come in, wait till your contractions are so far apart. And literally, what if your body knows something beyond, you know, what you ever possibly could think, you know, could contribute to you and your body? And so this baby is asking for us now to step up and ask questions and create the connection with the body and with the being. This baby proceeded to tell me how it manipulated its parents.
Yeah, I love this part, yeah.
Into creating herself being in distress. So the mom would also have terrible nights, and the mom was in distress. She was to have an emergency C-section the next day, just happened to go online, where I was just happening to have a body class, where she just so happened to be available to come, and came and experienced it. And the baby's like, yeah, I did all that. I was like, really? From everything to what colors the baby would like to have, to, you know, what crib it would like to sleep in, to what music it would like to play. And, you know, it was just profound, from the tiniest of details to the largest of extravagant adventures it created with its parents. And it was telling me that now's the time to get rid of all of the trauma and drama and mystery that we have going on. Like, how many lifetimes have we bought into that it has to be painful and it has to be labor? Labor's work. Yeah. Who wants to go to work? Who wants to have labor? And so we're starting to step into a different possibility now with home births and water births and doulas and midwives, and not necessarily doctors, and, you know, a whole bunch of different, you know, methods besides just breathing and chanting and drugs being available. So I write about this experience between myself and the baby. And isn't our book beautiful?
Thank you for showing it. I don't actually have my physical copy because I gave it to my best friend so she could read it and then write a review for us. So I don't even have mine.
Oh, wow. It is gorgeous with the sun in the background.
And if you open it side to side, our color wraps all the way around. So show us the back.
Oh,
because you notice it's all one big sunset. I love it.
It's beautiful.
So it is.
Oh, I should do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of the chapters in here have everyone's name on them. And
oh, that was Kim's.
Was that Kim's?
Just happened to be.
Hey, Kim.
Yeah.
You're up next, I think. And look at that, the energy. Happened to pull up your book, your chapter called "Around the World to Find Home."
I know, it's so juicy. So, Susan, if you had anything, if you want to actually pull from Conscious Birthing and Beyond, anything that you've been aware of in this whole process, like with your chapter and your choice to actually contribute this energy in the book and get it out there in the world in this different possibility, what would you like to say that's a offering to the watchers, the readers, that is like, you know, what would you like to impart as your sort of pearls of what you're aware of that could be a possibility in the world?
Yeah, so in the summer series, it came up that that the energy of creation, like just the concept, the thought process of creating something, kind of coincides with creating a baby. So you're creating a new being, and it has to also do with creating a book, or creating a new job, or creating a new house, or creating a career, or a new relationship, or a new you, or a new body. That energy of creation really contributes to what you'd like to pull into your life. And in looking at that energy, we talked with the participants, and we went all the way back to what they're having difficult with in their life, like a challenge and something that they can't seem to get over. And it seems to be something that they've cleared and cleared and cleared and cleared and cleared and cleared, and they've gotten books and telecalls and seminars to try to create a different possibility in their life, and they're still in the same place. So we asked questions and tracked it back, Sadie, all the way back to when they were in utero. And so what if that's when you received your first set of limitations, things that would hold you back while you were in utero and while you were at birth? And oh my goodness, the things that popped up for participants about, you know, they weren't enough came from when they were in utero because their moms said they weren't enough. And they wanted to get over this, or they wanted to get rid of this, or they wanted to get out of this, or they didn't have enough money, or this was going to create money challenges for them. And the list goes on. It's profound what we were able to come up with. And we were able to get rid of that because when you're in utero, you don't have the cognitive language for it. So this was all energetic receiving that you received. And so now that you have language, you actually aren't able to go back. So I call it the invisible limitation that's sort of been there for you, and it shows up in all areas of your life, not just trying to get pregnant, trying to give birth, or trying to create something. It has to do with everything, with money flows, how you show up in relationships, the kind of relationships that come to you. Literally, people's lives have been just turned. It's like a 180, and they're like flying.
Well, is it possible too that these beings that were coming to you and saying, you know, we're asking you to create something different, they're showing you this so that that's the kinds of things that you can empower people to realize, like when your points of view are actually impacting this unborn person, and what you know, what can you change around that? What questions can you ask? What different possibility can you be? So grateful that you're willing to talk about it and even be willing to be, you know, a little outside the box, and you know, super fun.
I sort of asked that. I'm like, okay, so how weird am I willing to be?
Yeah.
Right? And how much judgment can I receive from everybody going, you know, there's
you can't talk to a baby. Yeah. Hey, that's all right. Nonetheless, if it gets people to ask a question and to be in the space of possibilities, then let's have it.
That's right. Bring it.
That's right. Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
Good luck today on the various other 3 more things that you have going on.
And we're number 5 right now.
Yay!
Help us get to 1.
Yeah.
You on Amazon. Bye,
That's
Sadie.
right. Bye, Susan.
Bye,
Thank you. All right. Erica, are you there? I'm going to come back on. Hi.
I muted myself.
Okay. Can I ask you about your chapter?
Yeah, but can I interview you too?
Yeah, you can.
Whoa, baby. Just a minute. I actually, hold on one second.
Okay.
I just, I had a lamp fall. So, it's awesome. I'm just getting better than that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so, and I feel so excited to have been part of this whole Google Hangout. I feel a little different. It's funny. It's like, and I think you probably feel this too, being the publisher, you know, being the editor and the, and an author yourself. It's kind of like interesting because I sat there watching how you birthed the book and watching how you brought the energy into the book, and then supporting your growth and changes as the book has manifested itself into hands. And this beautiful moment we're in right now where we're actually having the book in our hands, which is so amazing. And yours is shipped. Yours is coming to you from all these directions.
I love it. I ordered like 5 copies on Amazon this morning. I kept trying to see because it was saying, just for you guys watching, if it says out of stock on Amazon, temporarily out of stock, you can buy it anyway. So if you just put it in your cart and purchase it, it will still, the order still goes through. So I was checking to see if that was working, and it did. So I was like, oh, okay, awesome. And then I kept ordering more copies just to find out.
I know. I ordered it a couple times. I'm like, this is so fun.
Yeah.
Even though I could get it for cost.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate the contribution.
Yeah, this brought up a lot of stuff that I have. Wow. I've got so much stuff in this area, Sadie. There's so much pain in this area for me. So, you know, I didn't have an easy birth of birthing my child. I didn't have an easy time getting pregnant. I actually had one easy adoption of my first baby, and then I had a challenging adoption with my second baby, And now I have 3 children, and I did want them all with complete and total, like, intensity. So when you were working on this book, it brought up so many things for me, you know, and as Susan was talking, you know, or some of them were talking about ease of birth, and I hated being pregnant.
Yeah.
It's like, I wanted Madeline. I wanted the baby, you know, I definitely wanted the baby. I definitely invited her spirit, and I could see her spirit before she was born. I do remember her floating over me when my water broke, and I remember standing there, and I remember her going, "It's gonna hurt. Is that okay?"
Oh. Well,
and,
you actually connected with the spirits of your other babies, even though you weren't the one that actually grew them, correct? So will you talk a little bit about just being aware of the beings that you're inviting to be part of your family and that are choosing you as their mom, and what that was like for you?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, the man that I chose to be married to at that time couldn't make a baby with me, so I'd wanted babies since I was born. I taught preschool, and I love babies my whole life. I have babies in my life, children in my life forever. So there was never a time when I didn't want to be a mom. Like, and that was what my nickname was in college, was Mom. So I remember when I said it's okay if the baby comes to me through adoption, I just kind of said, okay, well, that's all right. I'm good. You know, I'm interested in being a mom. I'm not, do I need my physicality to be carried through my genetic lineage? I don't really care. And so I just, sorry about my camera auto checks. Anyhow, so I just invited the spirit of my first 2 children to come to me, and I met their spirits before they were born. I chatted with them. And with my first daughter, it was a very conscious choice. The birth family is interesting. The birth mother looks just like my mother. I don't look like my mother. I'm Italian, dark, thick. My mom was blonde and kind of slender. So my oldest daughter actually looks more like my biological family than I do.
Oh, that's funny.
And then my son, who came from a different biological family, because they also chose us, looks just like my oldest daughter. So they look like spitting. And then my third child, who's biological, cracks me up. She's blonde.
Yeah, so you're like, who are these people?
She shows the same hair color as her siblings.
Uh-huh.
So no one can tell our family was built with all this creativity. Like, no one can tell. I remember some people would be so in judgment when I had the triple stroller. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it took me 10 years, baby. And they're like, you had 3? Like, you know, and they were
well,
1, 2, you know, they were,
apart, right?
Yeah. So much judgment. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Each of these babies is a miracle. And I so wish I had the tools of access at the time. You know, I did allow myself to go through whatever it took. And I did go into, when I conceived Madeline, it was really about what is the energy and space of what will happen. You know, it's just really allowing myself to have the knowing. And at the third, I had miscarriages as some of the other authors. And when I conceived Madeline, it was like I did acupuncture also. And it was just interesting. It was like I just kind of, and then I did a weird combination of drugs. So,
meaning like fertility drugs, not like illicit.
Yeah, I didn't do. Yeah, no, I don't take drugs. But I did like, I don't remember the names of them now, but one gave you lots of eggs and one gave you a little bit fewer eggs. And then I did a third drug that interacted with the other ones. I don't remember what they all were, to be honest, but I took charge and I stopped listening to the doctors, and I just said,
and you really started listening to your body.
I just listened to my
asking
body.
Your body, yeah.
And I just said, body, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? And I just kept doing what it said. And so I did this concoction of combination of things I had prescribed to me in previous fertility treatments. It was really funny.
You also speak in your chapter so beautifully about just asking your body what it requires. You know, just really like, do your body want more protein? Does your body want more of this? And just being in that dialogue.
I just was like, my body wanted so much cottage cheese. And then it wanted watermelon and beef. It was so funny because I never ate hamburgers. I didn't. It was kind of heavy for me. And oh my gosh, my daughter Madeline loves beef. To this day, she can eat, like, she can go through ribs. She's tiny, but she goes through like plates of ribs. She loves beef. And I just listened to cucumbers and watermelon. It liked a lot of alkalinity. It liked, didn't want any alcohol. I gave myself a little bit of coffee, but not very much. And I just kind of like went into what would my body be like pregnant, and what would it like when I was pregnant. And you know, I did the fertility pretty intensively. I did it also from, I was taking psychic classes. So I was definitely connecting to the spirit of the babies and asking the babies, is this the right time? Is this the right place? You know. And then once they were all born, it was so many different questions came up. So I was kind of listening to Glenna today. I'm really excited about the new parenting book that you're putting together, because I'm learning so much from them as potency.
Yeah.
As each child having its own energy, it's each child having its own life force, each child having its own gifts that it brings, and then, you know, what can I do to get out of their way to help nourish them to be their best thing? And Sadie, working with you on this has really been joyful for me. I think watching you it's kind of like an orchestra that you put together where you're bringing out everyone's energy, and it's really been fun for me to play with you on that. And I don't know if you'd mind just switching gears, and do you mind being on the hot seat a little bit and
Sure.
sharing a little bit about your chapter? And
Sure.
I'm feeling like your chapter would like to talk, and your parenting experience would like to talk.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. So just a little bit about my chapter. I really wrote mostly from talking about what I was looking at when I looked at the energy of what I could contribute to this book. Like I mentioned earlier, Creations as a book is a different energy than the compilation of the chapters and the energies of each author. Even though they show up and they come through, to me, the book itself has a different being than just the stories involved. But the story that I was looking at contributing to the book had to do with, there's this reality's point of view about the way it works bringing a being into this planet, you know, a very kind of logical, linear, this step leads to this step leads to this step kind of point of view. And what I was really aware of is, what if there's so much beyond that that we don't yet understand, and that is available to us to know and to tap into if we'd be willing to ask the questions that would give us the awareness of those things. So what I really talked about is how between my first and second daughters, I had a couple of back-to-back miscarriages, and it's really, so I went into this like, what's wrong with my body, and why can't I get pregnant, or why can't I sustain a pregnancy? And like Petrina was saying, a lot about the wrongness of my body and what the problem was and what was wrong and what I needed to fix. And so there was that, and there was also this whole other world that I was playing in that I didn't really talk about at the time, mostly because it's weird in this reality. And I really get the sense that the time has come, the time is now for people to be invited to be more aware of what they know and what's beyond the linearity that they have decided is the limit of what is true. And so I share also the story of how during those miscarriages, so going back a few years, when my oldest daughter was around 1, I read this really phenomenal book called Spirit Babies, and the author's name is Walter McCachin. I think that's how you say his last name. But anyhow, his particular gift was that he could always perceive energies, beings that were choosing parents and getting ready to come through. And it would be things like he would go to a cabin in the woods to have some time writing, and he would be aware of the being, and the being would say, well, my parents are going to be here next weekend to conceive me. So the being would be there waiting in that location. And then it was all different ways that these beings were showing up and kind of giving him information. So I was, of course, because I'm naturally drawn to anything weird outside the box, I was so drawn to it that I actually, I ended up having a phone consultation with the author of the book, and he was like, you have this boy, and he, because I was already feeling like my daughter was only 1 at the time, and we were still co-sleeping and still nursing, and it was very, very codependent, intense relationship between her and me, but I couldn't stop thinking about getting pregnant again, and so it was like this nagging, constant, like, let's do it, let's get it. And so what he became aware of is he tapped into this little boy energy that showed him all these times that we had incarnated as brother and sister, and showed him playing together and having so much fun and just really just loving each other and having this very playful relationship. And so what Walter actually said to him was, you realize it's going to be different this time. Like, you're not coming here to be her playmate, you're coming to be her child. And so it's not going to be like that. He was not happy about that. But he was so eager to come. And so that helped explain a lot of like this nagging, get pregnant now, get pregnant now, get pregnant now sort of thing I was picking up on. And so as I kind of tapped into that energy more, I became more aware of his presence around me all the time. And so then when it came time to actually, I realized, okay, now is the time that this works for me. I'm willing to start trying to bring a body for you now. I had a miscarriage at 11 and a half weeks, and I was baffled, like, okay, if you want to come so bad, what's the deal? And then but those things happen, so I go on a couple months later and we try to get pregnant again, and I have another miscarriage. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, if you're so eager, what are you waiting for? And so then go through, get pregnant with my second daughter. The next month after that, seems to be going fine. I end up getting some blood work done, and it turns out I had progesterone problems or whatever, and who knows if that's actually what was really going on. But later on in the pregnancy, when I got an ultrasound, I thought I was having twins. My middle daughter was enormous. She was almost 10 pounds when she was born, so she was this big fat baby. And I thought there were two in there. So we went to have an ultrasound, and I just assumed it would be a boy, and it was a girl. And I was stunned because I actually got the sense that it wasn't the same being once I was aware that this was a different being. But it was like I could feel him so strong. So I actually had another consultation with this author, and he was like, well, that's not him. Basically what they said was, you know, you've had so many miscarriages now, your guide sort of found you someone else, because this being is very finicky. He doesn't like this body, he doesn't like that body, he's just not choosing to stay. So so I know that sounds crazy, but the whole point in telling that story was just to invite people who read this book to be aware that maybe there's something else going on. Maybe there's not a problem with your body if you're having miscarriages. Maybe there's not a problem with you or anything about you. And granted, all these other things that all these beautiful authors have been talking about, contributing to changing those scenarios for you, are absolutely important. And what if there's all this other stuff going on too? What if this being coming to be your child actually has a point of view about when and how and what kind of body and all those things? And so it's just really my whole intention with the chapter was just to pose those crazy ideas, to be that weirdo that tells those things that most people don't want to talk about, and acknowledge that what if there's way more going on in regards to the creation of a being coming into this planet than just my progesterone is off, you know, I'm not eating enough of this nutrient or whatever.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about that when you're in the fertility experience, you tend to want the magic thing. You tend to want like the one thing that you do that all of a sudden makes it easy, like all of a sudden makes all this stuff go away, or, you know, I loved it in Petrina's chapter. She's like, what's wrong with me and all the self-help, you know, I own my reality, you know, I make my choices. Tell me a little bit about that, kind of that, I love that foundation of the book where you're just letting people see things completely differently.
Well, with the energy of the book in general, you mean, yeah, it was like I was looking at what this book desires to create in the world, and really what it was kind of showing me all along the way was it just wants to be the catalyst for waking people up to what else is possible. To not just that something else is going on, but that you actually have the capacity to create something else. You actually have the power and with your choice and your questions and the possibilities you're willing to acknowledge and to choose. You can actually,
Sadie, your sound is gone crazy.
That's it? Huh. Is that better?
Yeah, but I think we're just about done. You think we're just about done?
Yeah.
Should we let people go forth and enjoy the book? Do you have one more thing you want to say to close it?
All right, yeah, so thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for participating in the launch of our book. We're so excited to put it out into the world. We hope you go pick up a copy. The link is here if you want to transcribe that one by one, and then yeah, if you know anybody who could benefit from this book, we'd appreciate you passing on your copy, buying them a copy, and or just letting people know, and just inviting people to the possibility that there could be something else here, and could the energy of this book actually create something different out in the world. So do either of you ladies want to say goodbye?
Cassy?
Bye. Thank you so much, Sadie and Erica and everyone. Like, I feel really honored that there's so many, like, phenomenal stories in one book. Like, it's kind of greater that way, if that makes any sense. Like, it's just like you're Erica, you're calling her like a symphony. Like, the book is like a symphony of like possibility and inspiration. And I'm just so grateful that I got to be a part of it.
Yay! Thank you, Cass. We're signing off. Do you want to say goodbye?
Yeah, goodbye, and thank you so much, Sadie and Erica and everyone else on the book. It's just thank you so much for inviting me to contribute. It's been just beyond anything I really could have ever imagined. So yeah, I'm really super grateful.
I'm so grateful. Thank you for your contribution. Your chapter is beautiful. I can't wait to get it out there. I hope everybody gets it so they can be reading it and see what I'm.
Yeah, I ordered mine today, so I can't wait to get it.
Yay! All right. Cassy, do you want to say goodbye?
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you so much to you and to Erica and to everyone.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Your turn.
Thank you, Sadie. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.